welcome. This is the first conversation that Variety is hosting at the Canva studio, so we're really excited. Please give our guests a huge round of applause. Sitting to my right is David Tinson, the president of Chief Experiences Officer at Electronic Arts. And I have, all the way to my right, Julia Goldin, the CMO of the Lego Group. So before we came on stage, David, you said something very interesting. You said EA is no longer just about gaming. And Julia, you said the Lego Group is no longer just about toys. Can you talk about how both of your brands have evolved to become bigger than some of the early prototypes that you're known for?
Okay, I'll kick off. So, about 10, our brand is going to be 100 years old in 2032. And about 10, 12 years ago, if you asked anybody about the Lego brand, people loved it, but it was very much seen as a toy for boys, and also some older boys that would be building a lot of big sets in their garages. But that's pretty much what it was. And since then, we've been on a tremendous journey where we have unlocked many new audiences. And I would say now we are equally a brand for kids, for boys and girls of different ages, for teens that are one of our growth audiences, both boys and girls, and for women and men. We actually have more, as many adults as we have children, and we're growing with both audiences. And we have nominally more women than men that are buying and building Lego sets for themselves. So I think that's kind of been the journey of connecting with more audiences. But what has happened beyond it is that we have really gone from just being a physical experience into being an experience that's loved in multiple dimensions, whether it's, an F1 parade with the life-size Lego cars, whether it's a football ad that you see, whether it's botanicals that you go to build with, your date, or whether it's, what you're consuming in terms of entertainment content, Ninjago series, Star Wars specials. So there's so many different ways in which the brand is impacting culture, connecting to key passion points. And I think that's really where the journey has taken us, and why we say the expectation of our consumers is that we're not just a toy, we're an experience.
David?
Yeah, I think, a similar, we're not as old as you guys. We're about 45 years old. But today, if you look at the scale of video games, you look at the industry, like you did, to dispel some myths, almost half the world's population are gamers. Of that, almost half of gamers are women. And when you think of that scale of audience, and you think of then what types of experiences do you create, we're all in a fight for attention, right? We have plenty, as a consumer, we have a lot of ways that we can spend our time. We have a lot of ways that we can spend our money. But what we're really trying to do in that world where you have such a broad audience, such a large scale audience, is really to invite participation. And so I think if you just boil it down to the future that we see, or the present of entertainment, is participatory entertainment. And there's so many parts of entertainment today that are using many of the mechanics that games have become known for. You talked about, you play games, progression, rewards, and the like. And so that's just like the scale and the scope of video games today, and why we think participation is the answer.
What does brand experience mean for both of your brands? David, why don't we start with you on this one?
Yeah, I think when you think about what the nature of the participation is, particularly with young people, it's playing games, but it's also playing games to create friendships. It's playing games to create content. It's watching others play games. So a brand experience today is happening all around our games. It's in the games, but it's happening around the games too. It's happening across all different channels, whether you're playing, you're creating, you're watching, you're connecting. That's really what a game experience is today.
Julia?
We have a very multi-dimensional view of a brand experience. I think first and foremost, it has to be relevant to the consumer, relevant to their passion, what they're interested in, and who they're with and what they want to do. But I think the key of it is really about doing it in an authentic way and connecting with people in, so many in meaningful ways. I mean, I can give so many different examples, but when we start, we never think of a campaign. We don't just think of a physical product and then think about the marketing and then think about the experience. It's always holistic. So if it's F1, we're going to start thinking about what the product lineup will be, but at the same time, we'll be thinking, well, what are we going to do in terms of activations? What are we going to do on the grid? What are we going to do in social media? You know, what are we going to do with potential games? And it's things like that that I think create the opportunities for so many different connections. We know from all of the insights that people love the Lego brand for many different things, including its irreverent sense of humor, including its epic scale, the ability to have something that is in your hands that you can build a display or play with in your home, but you can also go somewhere and you can see something built out of Lego bricks on an epic scale. And we know that there's a bit of an expectation of that. But we also know that consumers want to be surprised. They want to be surprised and delighted, and they want to have something that is really unique and different and has high quality. And that's why we take time and like not do many, many different things. But if we do things, we're always going to try to take it to another level, whether it's the next game or whether it's the next Lego entertainment content or whether it's the next big experience. So that's how we think of it.
We're going to be hearing a lot, I think, about, quote, the brand experience here at CanLine. It's something that we're going to hear from a lot of brands and advertisers. And I was wondering, David, you talked about how 50% of the world's population plays video games. Where do you think of your demographic? How do you identify your demographic and how do you reach them?
Well, we're fortunate to have a portfolio that covers everything from F1 and Madden and FC, which is our soccer game, to The Sims, which you played.
I played The Sims. I love The Sims, yes.
To Battlefield, to Apex. So that there is no one gamer. There's no one type of gamer. There's no one motivation. Like I said, for games, there's as many people who might choose to be playing to create or to compete as there are for those seeking belonging, seeking expression. So there is not one type of gamer and there's not one type of experience. But I would say there's 4 or 5 things that are true through a consumer lens that I think have to be true of a great experience. I would say I need a brand to know that they see me, that they help me, that they are moving me, that they are creating a safe environment for me, a trusted environment. And in particular, you mentioned it a few times, that you let me in. You let me in to be a part of that. So when we look across the range of games, everything from console games to PC games to mobile games to games designed and geared more toward younger people or to women, those 5 things have to be true. Do you understand me? Do you know, are you creating a personalized experience for me? Are you helping me get to the next best part of that experience? Are you moving me and inspiring me? Are you letting me into the process? And so I think while the games are very different, the audience is very different, I think those 5 things are true of what would make a great game or a great experience with a brand.
Julia, same question for you. What is the demographic for the Lego brand? And I also am a lifelong person who played with the Lego brand growing up. But what is it? How do you find your consumer?
Yeah, we're quite granular about it. I mean, of course, demographics are there. That's like your first port of call in today's world. You know, you can always see like the ages, the geographical split, the gender. But the way that we think about our consumers is really tapping into their passion points. It's really about understanding what our audiences are super passionate about. And the cutoffs in terms of demographics, for kids, there's kind of natural because, you know, somewhere in between 8 to 10, they get a phone and then something changes. But actually, the rest of it is not demographic at all. Because, for example, if you look at people who are super into, football, it spans all audiences. It will be men and it will be women and it will be different ages. And we also see that from the experiences, that when we create products and experiences that really matter to the passionate fan, really understanding the fan and their fandom, the demographic spread is going to be kind of wild because it depends on the fandom. So I can just give you some really like interesting numbers, but we look at F1 cars, like little speed champions that, that we launched last year. If you look at the age marking, it's 10 plus. If you look at who's buying it, it's older boys, yes. It's teen men and older men, yes. But it's also one of the top 10 products for teen girls. And it's also one of the top 10 products for women. So here you go. And it's not about demographics. And same flip would happen with botanicals. You look at all of the Lego flowers and bonsai trees. Bonsai trees consistently one of the top 5 products for men. So I think we found that looking at demographics is actually not as useful as understanding passions of our consumers and tapping into fandoms, passion points, and communities. Because when you start there, you're going to attract all of the audiences you're interested in.
David, talk to me about advancing technologies and what role that plays in Electronic Arts.
I think the big word is enabler. So I think in a world where, in our FC product, right? So you have 100 million people across different platforms playing, and they're playing very different types of experiences. They're playing a PC free-to-play game in Asia. They're playing more console games in the West. You have a mobile product. You've got, again, a wide range of audience. The enabler is you're not going to be able to create a personalized experience. You're not going to be able to scale that experience. You're not going to be able to create a trusted, a brand-safe experience. You're not going to be able to offer the tools that players look for today to be able to create themselves and to be able to create content beyond the platform themselves without technology as the backbone. So that is part of the construct even of our company is technology is the backbone. We think of it as an experience, not just as a product. And that's why I said that, as we talked at the outset, it's this experience that's happening in the game. It's this experience that's happening around the game and beyond the game with technology as the backbone and the enabler.
Julia, my question for you is, can you talk to me a little bit about the role of Smart Play at the Lego brand?
Yeah, we just launched it beginning of this year at CES, which was quite unusual because we came, the Lego brand coming to CES. Like when I came on stage, I was like, okay, you're probably all wondering, what are we doing at this tech conference? Look, this, here in Cannes, the buzzword, of course, is going to be AI and emerging technologies and how they're helping us in our marketing, et cetera. But this is a completely different technological innovation, and it's a really big one. We're always very deliberate in thinking about how we enhance the experience people have with our physical products. And one of the things that we know is that when kids and adults, when they build Lego sets, they really love the experience. But it also misses a dimension of interactivity and a certain level of responsiveness and connection. And when we wanted to deliver interactivity, we wanted to go way beyond where anyone else has been with just light and sound and some basic technology that's a one-way street. So we developed a proprietary chip that essentially sits inside the brick, which makes it a very smart brick, which means that this brick can read all kinds of different codes that might be coded in tags or other bricks. It can adopt different behaviors. It will know if it's inside a helicopter or inside an airplane. It will be able to tell whether it's flying high or whether it's about to hit the ground and make the appropriate sound. If it's a minifig, it will know if it's encountering like a dinosaur that it might be scared of, or if it's encountering somebody that it knows. And if it's a little Pokemon, which we just announced our partnership with the Pokemon company. So if you have your Pikachu, the Pikachu will like raspberries or not like raspberries, respond to your training, respond to your prompts, and also will be unique and different depending on what you do with it. So that's kind of the role of Smart Play. And what is really unique about this approach is that the same smart brick will go into a Pokemon set, a Star Wars set, and any sets in the future. So it's not like you need to create a new thing every time. Once you get it, it can travel with you across the whole portfolio. So that's the vision of bringing interactivity, and we're just scratching the surface in terms of the number of things that the smart brick will be able to recognize and respond to. So you can imagine that kids will have their favorite themes and creations coming to life, but adults might also geek out on the fact that, you know, their Pokemons are interacting with them.
I did not have a smart brick growing up, but now I want to have one.
Well, the Lego brand is for everyone, so you're fully entitled. You don't have to hide it.
I will check that out. David, you're here with Cannes Lion with the launch of EA advertising. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a sports fan, can you imagine watching sports without, in the case of football, without a jersey sponsor? Can you imagine watching sports without ads along the boards? If you're a college football fan, could you imagine watching a field goal without seeing the all-state hands through the uprights? And on and on and on. So when you look from a consumer lens, bringing brands who are seeking young audiences, who are highly engaged, global audiences, scaled audiences, non-distracted audiences, in a very distracted environment where attention is the thing, we have brands who for years have wanted to be a part of that experience. We want them to be a part of the experience. It makes the game itself more relevant. And so that's what we're launching, is formally moving past kind of one-off, hard-coded in the game code sponsorships into more dynamic, more experiential opportunities for brands, better inventory for brands, measurement against standards that advertisers would expect inside of these large-scale game environments. So from a consumer lens, it's a very player-first offering. It's very relevant to brands. From a brand lens, you've got examples of, you know, the coach in The Sims offering bespoke content. You've got examples of Red Bull on a jersey sponsorship. You've got examples of Lowe's or Allstate in college football. These are great placements for brands. They love it. And from a business perspective, it gives us an opportunity to add a new revenue stream and to get even more players into our games. And again, as I said at the outset, you've got a highly scaled, highly engaged offering that just hasn't really had any type of scaled advertising ability in it. So relative to everything else going on here, we're barely getting started, but it's a huge opportunity for consumers and brands and from a business perspective.
And we have time for one last question. I want to ask both of you, what role does social media play when it comes to marketing and advertising for both of your brands, starting with you, Julia?
Massive. I mean, we are very lucky to have a very strong ecosystem and a very strong earned ecosystem. And the way that we think about media is that we don't start with the premise of paid first and then, you know, social, etc. We actually think where can we engage with consumers in the most meaningful way. So if I give you some numbers, you know, we did a lot of different stuff with the launch of F1 last year, but, you know, the F1 parade in itself generated 6.5 billion views, like almost overnight. Because that content traveled, and overall we ended up with about 33 billion engagements. Number one TikTok viewed post for F1, not for Lego, F1, for F1. So it can play a big role, but it has to be the right content for the right media. Similarly, we launched our football creative, not in paid media, but on Instagram, and that was, again, 440 million views overnight, and the content travels, but the content was created in the right way because we wanted to engage with consumers. We knew it was a deep fandom. We knew it was the kind of fandom that would create a lot of virality, and that's why we didn't want to go with paid. We wanted to go with social. So I would say for us, it's just become one of the natural channels to consider when you're talking about engagement and connection with your consumer. And it's interesting, one more point I would make is just the fact that now we talk about social. Of course, it's, it's becoming kind of in our DNA. But physical experience is not something that people think of as consistently. But I would encourage brands to think about that because physical experiences also matter a ton, and they create the content that goes social.
Really quick, last words.
Yeah, quickly. I think in a world of an abundance of content and an abundance of channels, community and connection is everything. I mean, that's the thing. And so our ability to build communities both in the games, but also, as I mentioned, around the games, makes that essential to the marketing mix, essential to the product mix of how we think about going to market. And in a world where video game content is amongst, if not the most viewed content on the internet, and it represents 97, 98% of, for as good as the content we do to market, the majority of the content is created by our consumers, and they're doing it on social, and they're forming these communities around our game. So it's kind of everything to us. It's a community-led approach to everything.
Let's hear it for David and Julia, representing two of the most iconic brands at Cannes Lion. Thank you guys very much. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Great conversation. Thank you.
So we have an interesting comparison, an interesting perspectives here from a major platform and one of the biggest brand conglomerates in the space in terms of beauty and hygiene and all of the many things under the Unilever umbrella. So thank you both for being here. I want to start a little bit because, of course, in the United States right now, we are in the thick of what's called upfront season. So let's talk a little shop with Amy. Right now, you know, you've been really preoccupied since the network upfronts in May about really getting those advanced commitments for the coming season. High level, Amy, what have you learned? What are you sensing about the state of the advertising market in the U.S. from the conversations you've been having the last 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah.
What's the pulse?
Yeah, so, you know, it's still a little bit early in the process.
Yeah.
We're into our discussions. I would say that we are feeling a lot of optimism about the discussions that we're having. For us, you know, this is a year where we're representing, we've got the Women's World Cup that we're bringing to the market next year, as well as more NFL games, as well as a fantastic slate that we're rolling out over the course of the broadcast year. So we're very optimistic about the discussions, and they continue to go well.
Feeling that sort of pulse, the marketplace is upticking?
Yep.
Let me ask you, Leandro, from your perspective, just in the broader kind of global picture of what you oversee, what is your sense of how the traditional television media world, there's been so much disruption, but when you're thinking about, you know, your big campaigns, what you have to launch, what are the platforms that are most important to you to be on?
Yeah, I think we are living really a big shift when it comes to where demand are created. I think really we were before so focused on traditional channels, and now people are becoming a little bit allergic to interruption, to places where they actually cannot find relevance. So there's a big shift towards entertainment, passion points, interest-based content. The more we go in the direction of culture and really build from culture the way we engage with the people we serve, the more we get it right and the more we drive more relevance. So it's a bigger shift in demand creation through relevance.
Mm-hmm. When you talk, I mean, you hit it right on the bullseye of what everybody's talking about, how to connect brands, storytelling, and cultural moments that cut through the clutter of what's on everybody's feed. Let me ask you, Amy, when you hear, you know, a CMO of a gigantic brand like Unilever talking about we're rethinking the way we do things and cultural moments, how do you and your team stay on top of those and create those opportunities that a Unilever or any number of major advertisers want to support?
Yeah, for us, it feels like a very natural extension, and that's why we're so excited about the partnerships that we've done. You know, when you look at a show like Bridgerton, which has such a huge fan base, a Gen Z fan base who lives and breathes that world, right, in terms of cosplay and off-platform and social. There's so many elements to dig into with an integration and a partnership that's done in a natural and kind of authentic way. So that's why we were really excited about teaming up with Unilever, because there was such a high bar of expectation and what we could do together. So it was really exciting to partner together on that.
And if I can build on Amy's point, I think this point of culture is so important. And when you think about culture, it's very difficult to not think about Netflix, because it's really the epicenter of culture. It's not only about content, it's creating worlds, right? And when we start discussing about the partnership, we really discuss about world building. Every time we go to one of the shows and one of the products, it's about taking our people to another world. And this is what makes the partnership interesting, because it's not only about content, it's about world building, right? And it becomes almost inevitable to be part of that cultural movement. So it's really exciting.
And tell the crowd, you did a partnership around Bridgerton with Dove, one of your many brands, a brand I love and know well. Tell us what was the spark? Who called who with the partnership idea?
Well, it's one of these partnerships that it seemed they were signed to happen. It's even difficult to tell how it happened, because, of course, I have been working on Dove for 16 years. So since the campaign for Real Beauty in 2004, we have been focused on real beauty, diversity of representation, self-confidence, expression, what Bridgerton is about. So I think I couldn't describe more about the brand without describing what the show is about and how much the show helped to expand beyond the stereotypes representation. So when we saw that connection, that was much beyond what the show was doing alone in the brand, it sounded like we need to partner. And then the whole conversation started, how we could make it work for our fans, right?
Yeah.
How did you, I can imagine that launching a product and weaving into storytelling and having, or even just having that, knowing when that launch would come in the series, how did you coordinate that? That must have been logistically very challenging to figure out exactly when that you would be ready to launch and the show would be ready, or was it not so challenging?
Yeah, look, I think we've got a long-lasting partnership, right? And so these discussions, as Leandro said, have been going on for quite some time, right? Always looking for what are those moments and what are those beats? What's that content that makes the most sense? So actually, from my perspective, it felt like a very natural timing in terms of the content that we created. Felt like it should be almost like just a little bit off-center of the screen, what should be on the screen, and it felt very natural to the overall storyline, tapping into female empowerment, all of the things that Dove wanted to bring to bear. And I think one of the things that we were most excited about is showing the almost 60% lift in terms of new shoppers that came as a result of the partnership. So
yeah, and this exactly is super important, because we were tapping to a world that we had the right to belong, but at the same time we're talking to an audience that we didn't connect as a product before. Because some brands like Dove, that are like long-standing legacy brands, we have sometimes more awareness than necessarily the usage of the product. And partnering with Netflix allowed us to close that gap, right? People know of Dove, expect Dove to be partnering with an initiative like Bridgerton, but when they see that happen, then it's when culture becomes conversion. And I think that connection is really powerful.
You touched on one. My question for you is, how do you gauge the effectiveness of the partnership? You touched on one, a 60% lift in new people trying or maybe returning to Dove. What are some of the metrics that matter to you most, and how far out do you have to go? Like, I'm curious, how long did it take you before you had that 60% stat? Was it months after it began? Was it sooner? I'm so curious about the metrics of measuring these very different kind of campaigns.
So actually it was very fast. We saw results coming very fast. We actually got sold out with the product with one of our retailer partners in the US.
That's a pretty good metric,
It's
selling
a
out.
very
That's
good
pretty
metric.
good.
Actually, my supply chain would say it's not a good metric. You don't want to be running out of product. But I think for a marketing team, it's a good metric. We got sold out of the product actually in the first month of sales. So we expected that we would take like 6 months to achieve what we achieved, and then we had to fast produce it again. But to your point in metrics, it's not only about the sales, it's what it makes to the brand. And I think when I say to the brand, I don't know if you agree, I mean to both brands, to the Bridgerton brand, the franchisee, and what it does for Dove. So what we're looking at also is like, is it credible? Is it authentic? Is it genuine? When people are engaging back more than just buying the products, are they saying, oh, this makes sense for me? Oh, I believe that this is true? Because then you see that you are strengthening the equity of the brand. So there is a short-term impact in sales that it's delightful, but there is a long-term building of the equity that comes when you do the right thing.
Amy, how did you, when this launched, obviously a big initiative for you, what were the yardsticks that you used? Did you look to see how Bridgerton fans were reacting on social?
That's exactly it. So one of the metrics, we look for social conversation, so the volume of the conversation, the quality of the conversation, and the association. We also look for just, how is the creative community reacting to, because that's such a huge part for us. We want our creators to make sure that they feel like these are authentic and lift the brand.
The Bridgerton producers,
Yes.
you don't want it to feel like it's forced.
That's correct. So there's a number of different ways that we think about success with these partnerships. And sometimes, brands are interested in the impact on sales. Sometimes it's the brand lift. We want to be sort of agnostic and prove all of these different proof points for the partners that we're working with. So,
Gotcha. It is risky doing something like that, because if it had not felt authentic, if it had felt a little bit more forced, is that something, when you launch something that is very elaborate in social media and you've got digital extensions and you're really going to build it, like any large marketing campaign, you launch it, if it is not received well, is there a little bit of like butterflies in the stomach when you're going out to market?
I think we've done enough of these, and our creative gut and our creative instinct is pretty good, and there are a number of people who are involved with these, and we have really honest conversations about this, right? We want to make sure that we're pushing each other creatively and having those discussions beforehand so that we're not out in the market kind of seeing a negative reaction to begin with. So I feel pretty good about doing these because we've done so many of them, and I really feel like the creative talent that we have on our marketing teams is fantastic.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think when you enter in this type of partnership, you need to know who you are as a brand, right? To collaborate with someone and not get lost, you need to know what you stand for. Because if you don't know what you stand for, then you are going to get lost. I think in this case, in this partnership, Bridgerton knows exactly what they stand for as a show. We know exactly what Dove stands for. So of course, there's always a risk, but this risk is really mitigated by the fact that we have a consistency of meaning, right? We know what we mean to the people we are talking to.
Do you have like a larger partnership where you might have a few things in the works at any given time, or do you do sort of project by project?
We're in constant communication, right? So we are talking about things that are 2 years down the road, right? In terms of what our slate looks like, where those opportunities might be. So I think, I don't want to speak for Unilever, but I think they would probably say we can't talk soon enough about these opportunities where we know there might be these natural extensions and these natural partnerships. And that comes just from having that great connection and being in constant kind of collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Amy's point, the relationship also changed a lot. It's much more long-term, right? When they have visibility about shows they are bringing and content they are created, we engage in things that will happen like 2 years ahead, because this allows us to really think about, does it make sense for the brand? Does it make sense for the show? So it also a much deeper relationship that used to be in the past.
I can imagine. And Leandro, do you have, I would imagine that your teams internally are, not that it's always been a creative business, but in terms of that, the 360 campaign now, that really is a hallmark of a product launch. I think when the public sees an elaborate product launch, when they see an elaborate product launch, they pay attention. They feel like, oh, this is on all my feeds. It's on any flat surface. I'm seeing it. People must be. So do you have people that are just constantly looking ahead, tapping into culture to think about how, because you have so many brands under your umbrella, how can Dove plug in? How can something else plug in there? Is that a real like a real focus for you?
Yeah, definitely. So we definitely have a big focus in understanding which communities we are serving with each one of the brands and which cultural product these communities are engaged with. So this is an ongoing platform, and we are always connected to what is happening in culture and how we can bring this to the universe of the brands. Yeah.
Let me ask you both, what is the most sort of misunderstood aspect of having a partnership like you do, where you, of course, you do business together, but you do more elaborate campaigns that stick in consumers' mind? What is sort of most misunderstood about that, or do you think the biggest hurdles to success that this partnership clearly has been successful and able to scale?
Maybe I have one insight on that. I don't know if you'd agree, Amy. I think one of the misconceptions is that this is about product placement. So a lot of brands, I don't know, I can speak for even some of ours, that we need to change the mindset, believing that we're going to measure success based on how much the product appears. If I don't have product placement, if I don't have something related to the product, it's not going to work. Product placement was a problem of visibility. Now we have a problem of relevance. And relevance is not built by putting the product there. It's by building a reason for the brand to exist in that universe. This is a misconception, and it's a mindset shift that we actually need to have. And I see internally we have some brands in our portfolio that are already there and other brands that are catching up. But you need to shift the product placement button.
Yeah. Amy, from your perspective?
I think people probably misunderstand just how much work goes into these in terms of every little aspect. Because to the point that we talked about earlier, it's really important that it hits it with the fans, right? And so making sure that we're coming at it from all angles and anticipating any interpretations or, creative cues, like all of that is really important. There's a lot of thought that goes into all aspects of the creative approach.
Absolutely. None of this is easy, folks, even though they make it look easy. Please join me in thanking my panelists here, Amy and Leandro. Leandro Barreto of Unilever and Amy of Netflix. Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and there is more to come.
Thank you.
So we're going to zoom in on a campaign that broke through on Super Bowl that's called The Choice, and sees a polar bear that's famously associated with your rival at Coca-Cola, which has a loyalty crisis that sends him to the therapist. So first off, how did you come up with this idea?
You want to go first? Sure. We get briefed by our great client, and when it's the Super Bowl...
That's a great way to start.
That's
I love
good?
that.
Okay, box tick now. I can go off script. You get briefed, and I think when it comes to the Super Bowl, it's always a very special brief because entertainment is absolutely paramount, and PepsiCo is one of the most historic, biggest, best Super Bowl advertisers. So it's the most fun brief you'll get in your entire year. And maybe we can talk about this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what was great about it is, like, it actually started with a brief around Pepsi Zero and the fact that we really needed to get across the message that, consumers, we've been doing the Taste Challenge. It's the 50th anniversary. We had all this amazing data. 2/3 of the country preferred Pepsi Zero versus our competitor. And we needed a fun, Super Bowl-worthy way to tell that story. And ultimately, that's the brief. How you got to a polar bear, a psychiatrist, and a Coldplay-esque moment is the creative sauce. And I think what was special about that campaign is that it was like really a very joint collaborative effort between the BBDO team, our internal team, and just working through the idea to make it really special. And, borrowing the bear is actually not the idea. The bear just happened to represent the average consumer who doesn't realize they prefer Pepsi. And I think that's what made it super special. And the creativity became the multiplier.
Were there any legal implications for using such a mascot that's tied to Coca-Cola?
Mark will speak about the real legal implications because I know you dealt with quite a bit. So thank you for that if we haven't already thanked you. But I think, one of the interesting things that obviously, creativity is a little bit amorphous as you work towards different ideas. But one of the most interesting things is we needed to tell a story where the consumer felt that we were saying that Pepsi is the preferred choice over Coke. But the story had to be related to the Pepsi Max data point, that at 63%, that was, drinkers always chose Pepsi Max, or Pepsi Zero. So in that case, the story should have focused on one person and their transformation. So that narrowing of the path is really one of the ways why the bear was the perfect solution. But the legal stuff, Mark and his team have a lot of courage.
That's really like passing the buck on. Like, it's not a legal discussion, if we're honest. It's a brand conversation. I think, look, just because someone else had used a iconic image, fine. You take risks when you borrow something. But what was amazing is it was the whole point of the idea. The idea is the average person that may think you prefer one thing, the Pepsi paradox is actually, if you try it, you will like it. And so we just chose something that stood out to be, representative of someone that may like something else. And we told a story of the mental anguish, the truth around taste, and the paradox that is, what you really love versus what you think you love. And we had a lot of fun with it. But I think, what you want to make sure, I think what the best part is that, online it turned into this huge debate. I had Mark Ritson and Byron Sharp kind of going at it, and Evan from the CMO Uncensored. It was awesome because they were talking about it, and all I can tell you is that I got 90+% attribution was to the Pepsi brand. This was not, this was not a ad for my competition. This was an ad about how great our product is. So that's all that matters, and it was incredibly creative.
By the way, the thing about that too is all the data would tell you not to use your competitors or something that looks like your competitor's mascot. I think where the bravery of teams and marketing comes in is when you're trying to create new data. And you're not just following all the old rules, but you're taking calculated, smart risks where the story is grounded in the product, you're going to cover it well, but all of a sudden, there's going to be a case for brands, marketers, teams to do work that maybe wouldn't have been supported before. So I think that's a nice result of this, ancillary.
Yeah, it felt organic because it was part of the story, so that's why it worked. So as you were mentioning, it got really viral on social media. There were a lot of content being created. Were there elements that you used to kind of trigger that user-generated content?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we were talking about this talk and kind of talked about this idea of being caught up in culture. Not like brands love to say like we were part of culture, we ignited culture. That's usually not true. Like brands can get caught up in culture, and that's what happened with this. When we teased it during the playoff games, and it sparked a whole bunch of conversation. We actually initially teased it in some out-of-home in New York City with paw prints and a can, and it just started a social conversation because right, wrong, or indifferent doesn't matter how old you are. There's this inherent rivalry, number one versus number two, and it just started a conversation. And what was amazing is that socially, well before the Super Bowl, we were able to spark the conversation. Then the polar bear had an Instagram account. Then, we basically, what's amazing is that, you get 130 million people on a Super Bowl ad. I can tell you I have 3 social assets that have more than 200 million, just 3 assets alone that are just cut downs the teaser, the 30, and the long form. So just being able to create the conversation, generate the buzz, and that doesn't even begin to discuss how the internet and particularly AI turned our ad into a gazillion ads, some of which I probably wouldn't have any respect or approval of, but it turned into a phenomenon, and we got caught up in culture.
I think one of the other things when we were discussing this was in our business, both in marketing, creative agencies, and that whole world, the conversation is about how AI is going to create assets, deploy assets, how things will scale, automate, all that stuff. What's really interesting, and I think the revelation for us here is the true ecosystem, why this was in so many people's feed end to end, is actually not that marketers and ad agency people were leveraging AI, but all of a sudden consumers are fucking around on AI and they're able to make and generate their own parodies, their own memes. And so really there was a well-constructed ecosystem, but the truth of it, the way it caught fire in culture was actually because these tools are now in the hands of every Android and iPhone user. And so all of a sudden they were participating and playing in it in a way maybe a couple of years ago they couldn't have. But really the ecosystem was built by people who just loved the spirit and the attitude of it and loved the edge, and they started playing.
And you know what's great too is we brought this 7-foot bear to San Francisco, and he showed at all kinds of events. And I was at this event, and this woman came up to me and she said, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." And I'm like, "For what?" She's like, "Well, I'm the CMO of this outdoor stove company, and we ripped on your bear ad and we made our own AI one." I'm like, "Thank you. Like, have fun." Like, look, we didn't use any AI in what we did, and I truly believe in the power of human creativity, and I believe that it will always be the front, center, and core to what we do. But if technology can enable to expand creativity in fun new ways, there's a lot of concerns about it, of course. But I think what's important is it's like you said, it's real people expression, and it's allowing you to take your story even further.
Just quick parenthesis. So you said you didn't use AI on it at all, like at any stage. Did you? No?
No. I mean, maybe I wrote an email to Mark and I put it in my chat GPT to clean up
No,
the
you
typos,
did.
or something. But no, but not. Yeah. No, it was proper VFX, proper practitioners. Nothing through any of the
Frame Store did an awesome job on that. It was like we literally built models and had people in bear suits, and it was a lot of fun. I even wore it once.
Really impressive. And so you also worked with a critically acclaimed filmmaker, Taika Waititi, who actually won an Oscar for Best Screenplay for Jojo Rabbit. What did that bring to the whole campaign, to have that kind of auteur outlook or filmmaker outlook?
When you get the chance in our business, as you do, to collaborate with exciting filmmakers, there's different kinds of projects. I was recently just in the entertainment jury, and there was a beautiful 30-minute Gucci film that was done by Spike Jonze that felt like he was the auteur, and it was, wild and fresh and free. And then there are, directors for hire where it's something very prescriptive. Our business is at its best when it's in the middle, and you've got a great idea, and the brand and the client really know what the beats are and what has to happen, and then it's really on the talent of the director to bring everything they can to the littlest nuance. So in this case, because it was Super Bowl, because the stakes are so high, and because obviously we can, we had boarded this thing out and made an animatic of this thing every which way to Sunday to make sure that we could tell. I mean, there's an instigating moment of the taste test. There's a transformation. There's a resolution. It's 30 seconds. So we had to make sure that we had every beat of it covered, and of course the Pepsi story throughout. So when it came time for Taika, a lot of it was predetermined, and then it was what details are you going to bring to the Bears' performance? What details are you going to bring to every scene? So sometimes the director will have a holistic approach and rewrite it, and then other times their talent is actually pointed at tiny details that make a really big difference.
Yeah, I mean, Taika was awesome, and I think building off of Chris's point, what he was able to do was bring his personality and his kind of perspective on the story. I mean, what you ended up seeing was true to board. I mean, it was absolutely true to board. But I can tell you, we actually, Taika had worked on the Seal is a Seal ad that we did for Mountain Dew the year before. And having spent time on set with that guy is awesome. He's like a little kid. Everything is fun. He's always involved. He's getting excited. And I will tell you that when Framestore created the CGI for the bear, the references were videos that Taika took of the faces he wanted. Like, he literally filmed himself making the faces he wanted for the bear. So he was literally acting for the bear. And that's the level of, acting and character. And also, and
he plays the character.
He did.
Plays the psychologist.
And he played the character. And there's a little backstory, and Chris doesn't like this because the agency pitched someone else to be the psychiatrist. Mel Robbins, I'll say it out loud, and I decided to go with Taika, and I think it worked out. So,
It looks amazing.
I was doing it because I didn't have to fly Mel to New Zealand, but
it definitely worked out.
It
I don't know if
worked
maybe Mel Robbins adds another million views. I don't know.
it was perfect.
And I also will say, but here's the collaboration. So Taika stepped in and played the therapist, and then the line he delivered is "Tell me about your mother," and that's for me. That's a little joke there. It's a little joke about
So how have you measured the success?
I thought it was funny. Get it? Okay.
So tell me about, this, of course, this campaign went viral. Everyone was talking about it. How have you measured the success of it?
I mean, ultimately, you measure success on business results, share, growth, et cetera. Our zero sugar business has been growing double digits for the last 2 years. And actually, the acceleration we saw, especially in Q1, supported by the Super Bowl, supported by this campaign, supported by the Taste Challenge last year, remember, we were growing 2 to 3 times the category. We're outpacing our competition. We continue to grow share, and that is ultimately the most important. But I think what's really important is that we are at our highest equities of all time over the last 12 months. Like, the Pepsi brand has grown equity across the board. And I think the reason is because we've been focused. We worked very closely with CBH and the team on Food Deserves Pepsi, which is an anchor campaign about the most important occasion, really doing distinctive work that tells the story of why you should have a Pepsi with your meals. And then we've been very simple, focused around the taste of Pepsi Zero. And so that has driven our distinctiveness, our brand meaning, our overall brand love to higher levels than ever before. Our association with food is up double digits. Like, all of these things matter, but I think the biggest thing and why the partnership matters so much is just the consistency of storytelling matters. And I think it's the one thing that we've learned. If we're honest, in the past, Pepsi kind of went all over the place, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think our focus has actually allowed us to yield those results.
Are there any specific metrics that you're using to measure the payoff from a campaign like that?
Yeah, and the biggest ones for us are brand meaning, distinctiveness, overall equity, KPIs, market share, volume growth, value growth, anything that actually helped, and also the mix in our portfolio. I mean, as you guys know, I've got a very large portfolio of vending brands, and we're continuing to shift into zero sugar and better for you brands. So to allow our acceleration of that part of our portfolio and investing in moments and in campaigns like this at a point, like a cultural moment like the Super Bowl, is a great way to drive awareness, and it's worked.
And I think, by the way, for us at the agency, one of our most creative ideas of the year being, one of the most effective is really the kind of what we're angling for, because obviously, we're always trying to prove our value as creative partners to brands. And so these kind of, when something that's wildly creative has results like that, that's such an important case study. And one of the metrics that I wouldn't gloss over is that this was the most effective social campaign in the history of Pepsi.
Yep.
And with that, there was a very thoughtful ecosystem, but really it was the power of the idea igniting in culture and people's own individual participation in it that drove it. And what it's really helped us do is, right now there's an obsession with a modern ecosystem, and that, if you're not social first, and if an influencer doesn't do the first chapter, and if this, there's a million playbooks, and everyone's working through this anxiety of feeling like they need to fill out a blueprint or a coloring book. And I think this also is just a reminder of just anchor in a fucking awesome idea that's going to win in culture, and then culture will do what it does best, which is it will scream about it, it will talk about it, it will play with it, and that all happens in social. And so just to remember that you don't want necessarily a social first brief, you want a culture first brief, and you will always win in social.
Yeah, and I didn't bring up the things like ad meter and stuff like that, but we were number 3 in the ad meter, but we were the number 1 30-second spot and the best 30-second spot in the last decade. And on top of that, we were the number 1 searched ad on YouTube during the Super Bowl window. And you know, all of other partners, we integrated stuff with DoorDash and other programs. So like, we really looked at this thing really holistically, and that's how we would measure success. Ultimately, if I can continue to grow the business double digits, that's the big win.
So you really push the envelope with that campaign. Are you gonna bring back the polar bear for the next one, or where are you gonna, find the next big idea that kind of shocks people and entertain them?
Whether the polar bear ever appears again, I'll leave that up to your imagination. Perhaps, maybe, who knows? But it's actually not about the polar bear. It's about how can we find creative ways to reinforce the taste of Pepsi. And I think that's worked incredibly well. The bear is one way to do it. We've been telling some great stories with food. You know, we've taken over competitive restaurants. We've chased delivery drivers. We've done all these things to really creatively express like how consumers really prefer our product, and we just need people to know. And that's the most important thing. I mean, and it's great to also get recognized. We're on 4 short lists, so touch wood, we'll see what happens this week. But being recognized for the work is great, but being recognized for the role your brand and product plays in culture, that is special.
Can I say, we want to win a Cannes. We love Cannes, but it already won. I'm fine.
I agree.
I'm fine. I feel really good about that case study for us, for the kind of work we're going to do. So this would be a cherry on top.
I think it's good luck to say we've already won so that we win as well. That would be actually good.
That's why I did it, Mark.
Good job.
And what are the, very last question, what are the cultural kind of trends that you're looking at that could inform the next thing you do together?
I mean, I love the fact that consumers engaged with the work. I mean, those of us who have been around for a while, when UGC was a new thing, that was cool, right? You make something, people create it. Now with AI, people are not just creating it, they're like recreating it, and they're creating different stories. So I do think there's going to be, that's why I use this term, caught up in culture, because what's happening is that your brand is being caught up in other people's lives. You saw what happened with Lego. You saw what happened with the polar bear. It is creating a whole new sense. I mean, most recently, you may have seen a Pepsi ad that we had nothing to do with Pep Guardiola. Like, we had nothing to do with that. That shit blew up. And I was getting calls from my friends, I love your new ad. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And, and we had actually, the funny part is, we had that idea 8 years ago, and we had a sponsorship with Man City, and we didn't do it. And there's a backstory for that, but that's not the point. The point is, culture captured that, and I think that's the trend. I think technology will allow those stories to continue to be told in new and different ways, and that's what makes our jobs fun.
Just keep playing and find it, It's just you get the
Thank
brief,
you guys.
and you just keep playing, and then you hit something, and you love it, and Mark loves it, and the team loves it, and then off you go.
Well, fingers crossed for the awards here,
See what happens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cracking the Gen Z code. You both work at iconic brands. Talk to me a little bit about the Gen Z audience and why it's so important to reach Gen Z.
Well, hi everyone. I think the minute you don't recruit new audiences and young audiences, you are out and you are not current. And I think to become a modern brand, you always have to talk to new audiences and recruit them. It's all about recruiting people. But once you recruit them, they need to be in the conversation and they need to love you. So that's a little bit of why.
Leo?
I think what we've seen is it's super important to recruit them, not only because they are the future of where the category is going, but also because they have a humongous influence on the rest of the generations. A lot of people, me included, I'm the first one to be guilty of seeing something on the internet that some creator has posted and being like, ooh, I want to try that. So it's the influence that they have over every other generation that's super important to us as well.
Talk to me about working with creators. How do you find a creator that's right for your brand and that speaks in the right voice for your brand?
I think one of the most common misconceptions is that people prioritize reach over affinity, even when choosing creators. And for us, it's really important that it's authenticity in the way that they speak and in the way that they interact with the category and the brand. So for us, it's about building long-term partnerships with someone who feels that they truly are fans of the brand, and there's so many of them out there. It's about choosing the right ones and building a long-term relationship with them.
And so how do you know if a creator's right for Nespresso? What is it about their voice that speaks to your brand?
There's an entire community of what they call themselves the Nespresso girlies that are very passionate about discovering hacks, tricks, the newest flavor. There's even secret communities in different social networks. It's about tapping those and choosing the ones that have the most influence and the ones that feel they can be more true to our brand voice.
Fabi, what about the gap? When it comes to creators, what are you looking for?
It's the same. It's relationships. I think we treat them as peers, from our talent to the creators to it's about style, it's about function, it's about meeting them where they are. And it sounds easy, but it's about fit. Do they have the brand fit, the brand affinity? And it's really important for us to create and drive that conversation and relationship. It's not a transactional thing, especially in the world of creators that exist so many. We started with 0 2 years ago. We have 1,300 right now. And it's about creating that community. And sometimes we actually help them to connect with some other creators and really keeping them in the family. They're part of the Gap family.
When it comes to judging content at the Gap, how do you judge if something is successful, if a campaign is successful, or if a video is successful online?
We don't judge, we listen. We listen to the audience, we listen to what the messages in social media. And I hope you've seen what we've done. Do you remember Cat's Eye?
Yeah.
Who remembers Cat's Eye?
We had 8 billion impressions in the first week. So when you have such a big response from the audience, it's about really how do you keep it going. So now it's like, okay, how do you put more content out there? How do you become like, and then we did some surprise appearances. I think we did a lot of great things with them to become a little bit more personal and 360. And it was just amazing. You didn't have to judge anything. It was the metrics that mattered, the brand love, having seen the traffic increasing in our stores at .com, the conversion, the consideration. For months, the search for Gap denim was the biggest that the brand has ever done. So it really went into the consideration and conversion part of the funnel.
Leo, talk to me about risk taking. How does Nespresso take risks in the space, and how do you speak to new consumers by taking risks?
I think you have to take risks. It's about taking measured risks and understanding that the only way forward is to disrupt yourself before everybody else does it to you. So while you still got the strength, the power, and the energy to do it, you have to learn how to do it well and making the right choices, because the job is not really to protect the history. It's about protecting and clarifying what your essence is and reinventing it for a new generation all the time. And that will always require risk. It'll always be about understanding that what took you here is not necessarily what's going to get you into the next stage.
And for the Gap, what does risk taking look like?
Well, we're taking risks in everything we're doing right now. We did Young Miko, which he was the first Hispanic artist that the brand has ever done in 56 years. Singing in Spanish, it was a big risk. It doesn't seem like that, but for us as Latinos, but it was a big risk for an American brand. And we want to take it to the next level. We want to make sure that we're not just the best American brand. We have to be the best global brand that appeals to different generations, that connects with different generations, and is democratic and inclusive.
I also wanted to talk to you. Obviously, Gen Z has very strong opinions, but nostalgia is also very, very strong for Gen Z. Like, I think every once in a while on my timeline, I see the Sarah Jessica Parker Gap ad with Lenny Kravitz. And so how do you build off of something that's organic or authentic where people are rediscovering something in Gap history, and how do you connect that to the future of Gap?
Well, when I took this job 2 years ago, it's not an easy one having that background when you have the best kind of pop talent or big talent through the decades. And then the brand was a little rested, like we're resting. And then he said, how do you bring it back? And a lot of the people inside and outside the company, can you actually bring those 90 ads back? And I said, no. No, because it's nostalgic, but it's more relevant for Gen Z doing something current, doing something relevant. Sarah Jessica Parker, we love her, and we may do something in the future very small with her, but putting Cat's Eye in front of the consumer and giving them that platform, it was more important for Gen Z than anything else, because it was about meeting the talent where they are. Young Miko was the same thing. Troye Sivan was the same thing. We helped them. We helped them to have a bigger platform. And I think Gen Z respects that. And for older people, it's like, okay, nostalgic is important, but you can actually do it through the way that we're building the stores right now. We have a heritage wall, we have a printed book with the best things at Gap for the last 3, 4, 5 decades, and that's enough.
Very good answer. Interesting, very interesting. What about for you at Nespresso? Nostalgia and the history of the brand, how do you pay tribute to that while also moving forward?
Yeah, but that is a very delicate balance, and I empathize a lot because we come with a very strong heritage of having what most people would know as the longest standing brand partnership with an endorser, George Clooney. And 20 years of doing a very extended saga of narration that we had to figure out a way to evolve in a way that still paid tribute to what he brought to the brand, but did it in a way that still was very much looking forward. It was still about reinventing the what else, which is a line that he came up with. Not a lot of people know this, but he actually came up with that line in the first original ad that we did in 2006. And it was about reinterpreting that line and giving it a new, complete meaning as an invitation to explore, to redefine Nespresso not only as obviously exceptional coffee, but more as an invitation to discover what else can you do with coffee, which is what Gen Z is all about. So in the way that we finally did the play, it was Dua Lipa reinterpreting that expression as an invitation to say, come explore with us. And when people explore, they stay.
What was it about Dua Lipa that made her the right brand ambassador? Obviously, she's everywhere now with her wedding, but what was it that was right at the time?
It was, honestly, she was been to the whole point of creators. She had been a longtime fan of the brand. Her dad is like, grew up with the brand. He literally doesn't go anywhere without it. So she grew up with it as a staple in her household. And she just embodies this, what we like, this culture, this quest for exploration, this wanting to, she takes a stand and she's not apologetic about it, and she's fun, elegant, but in an approachable way. So it was a combination of all those things that made her the perfect person to embody this new stage of Nespresso.
Authenticity is very, very important for Gen Z. We're going to hear that word probably many times this week. How do you avoid being, quote, cringe? How do you make sure that a campaign feels real without pandering to your audience?
To me, is working with the right people. I think is, as I was saying, with the talent that we work, we really make sure that they're fans of the brand, friends of the brand. We really take a look at their audiences, their posts, their profiling, everything. And then we meet with them directly to see if there's a fit, if there's a chemistry, if there's something that we can actually explore going further. Because, as I said, I really, truly believe that it's a Gap family. When I see the girls, the Cat's Eye girls now, after a year, they come and hug me. So it's like, it just feels a good connection because it's a little bit of a give and take, and it's a give situation. And we work for them, they work for us, but we work together. And I think that's a little bit of, and it's always a risk, to be honest, because it's so much that and then especially the audiences are really hard on brands these days. whether you love it or you hate it. There's nothing in between. And you just have to take the risk and go for it.
What about you? Yeah.
I think it's about consistency, right? It's about understanding, does it fit with your brand voice? We kind of have like 3 filters, right? Is it consistent with our brand voice? Can we add anything to it? Like, do we bring anything to the conversation? And will it make sense in 6 months? Because there's a lot of temptation to just jump into a trend because it's the right moment, and it doesn't, in 6 months, will it matter? And I think the examples of what I've seen, what you did with Cat's Eye, and the way that a lot of the most meaningful brands really jump into it is by really using their own voice to add something so that it feels that they're really adding to culture rather than just riding off it.
So how would you like Gen Z to see your respective brands, starting with The Gap? If you had a crystal ball and you wanted to predict what Gen Z thought, what would you want that to look like?
I want to be in their closet. So being in their closet is being your favorite. Can they be the first thing they grab in the morning? They grab the pair of jeans, the T-shirt, the jacket. I want it to be Gap. And I think it's not an easy one, but if you want to be somebody's favorite, you want to be part of their main things. What is your purse, your closet, anything that is attached to you every day. And then it's how you bring conversations and loyalty and everything without being forced.
For Nespresso, we kind of borrowing of your page. I want to be in their kitchen. I want them to choose to, make Nespresso coffee for any type of coffee that they want. I think the misconception sometimes is that we're just that coffee for that exceptional, weird moment when you want to have a tiny short espresso in the afternoon or at a special occasion. Our world is so much broader than that. Iced coffee, cold coffee, an espresso martini, whatever you name it. Whenever you think of coffee, I would like for people to think that Nespresso is the best choice for that moment.
I also wanted to talk, obviously Gen Z spends a significant amount of time on social media. So what role does social media play in terms of gauging what Gen Z thinks about your brand? Do you spend a lot of time going through comments? Do you look to see what people are posting and how they're responding to your brand, the good and the bad?
Well, first, our content has been designed and produced for certain platforms. Cat's Eye was for TikTok, Young Miko was for YouTube. And then you start thinking your platforms and how you actually want to navigate through it to create different cuts of the same content with different endings or different content, just to make sure that you continue surprising. The other one, to your point on comments, I have a community manager that she's Gen Z. So she knows how to respond there. And she works for Gap, it's 100%, and then she has a new assistant, and it's an intern from college. So when you are the voice of the brand and it's the same consumer, it's easier for us to engage. She's free to, she knows how to answer, no bureaucracy, no filter. She goes and answers, and it's immediate response. Try it, send a message in Instagram, TikTok, or something, and if you see a reply or a heart, it's coming from her and from them, and I love them. And that's the voice of the brand, the brand owners.
And learning to respond in the voice of the brand, right? She knows how to respond representing, she's a person, but she's representing Gap.
Correct. It's not about.
Leah, what about Nespresso and social media?
Yeah, it's, honestly, we're a little obsessed with the comments. Maybe a little unhealthy. So it's the feedback that you get.
How much time do you spend a day looking at comments about Nespresso?
Much more than I'd like to recognize, probably. And I like to just go into the weeds of Reddit and hear for what's beneath the surface. I think that a lot of the times you stick to the surface comments and you don't really get the
best consumer insight.
Exactly. And so obviously there's all of the tools that you can have to have social listening, but sometimes it's reading it yourself that makes it dawn on you. And we pick a lot of insights on the machine usage with the capsules, how people are not or using their iced coffee features. So you learn a lot from it. We let it guide a lot of our conversations.
And so we have time for one last question. I wanted to ask you both, how, looking ahead to the future, obviously Gen Z is incredibly important, but how do you then look ahead to Gen Alpha and speak to even the younger consumers in the marketplace, starting with the Gap?
I will make it both ways. We need to make sure that the older consumers don't leave us. They're as important as the younger consumers. And Gen Alpha looks after Gen Z. So we need to make sure that we really conquer Gen Z to get Gen Alpha in a good way and start grooming there. We're a multi-generational brand since babies. So we have Baby Gap, Gap Kids, women, men, Gap Body. We're launching new things. We're launching fragrances. We're launching accessories. So we're kind of a family brand, but we need to make sure that we don't lose the sight of things and we don't try to do too much. As we recruit and we entertain Gen Alpha and Gen Z, it's about entertaining them. When I look at millennials is about retaining them and making sure that we're interesting enough to keep them with us. Gen X is about not leaving us, offering the right product, the right style, really go back to what the roots of Gap is and respect the heritage. And if we are able to do that, that's the future of Gap, and continue to building the global brand and being building the universe of our audiences.
And Leo, just to close, how young just the Nespresso consumers start, and talk a little bit about Gen Alpha as well?
They usually they start when they acquire their first machine, so around 24. But we're starting to see that they come into the brand a lot sooner through our accessories. So we've launched a range of accessories, which is becoming bigger and bigger, and they start to come in at around 16, 17 sometimes. And that's okay, and that's great. That's the moment to get them. But as we think and look forward to Gen Alpha, we got to be ready for an environment where AI is going to be part of their nature. So creativity is going to have to look a lot different. Experiences are going to have to be virtual and physical, and we're going to have to be ready for a world where the expectations are already high for Gen Z. I think they're going to be even higher for Alpha. So we have to get ready for it for sure.
This was an incredibly informative conversation. Can we please hear it for Fabi and Leo? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Some big brands to talk about all the trends. Rita, speaking of trends, we're going to talk about the focus on brand partnerships and storytelling. But real quick, we're about a month out of the upfront presentations, and that means in the United States, where all the advertising, the buying and selling, the real wheeling and dealing of the upfront. High level, how are you feeling? What are you learning about the marketplace from the negotiations that I know you've had in the last bunch of weeks?
Yeah. So it's a great question because we've been very busy since May. We are almost done. We have been, as you know from our upfront presentation, this year we have the Super Bowl, the first time in 20 years, the first time I've actually gone to market with it in the US. We've added internationally. And so obviously that makes it a very robust marketplace for us because there's a lot of interest. I would say more interest than supply available for that. But in general, I would say, people are looking for sports, they're looking for streaming, they're looking for big live moments. And big partnerships. It's no different than I would say most upfront conversations. People want to make sure they're putting the right investments with the right media partners. But we're excited, and I think you'll see some news coming out shortly about where we are and how we feel about it.
That's great. Thank you so much. We appreciate that pulse check. And Disney, you were so ahead of the curve in talking live events, big cultural moments, and brand partnerships at your event in May, where you showed off all of your new programming and plans for the coming year. You really touched on a lot of trends. And so I would like to just get a sense, building on that as the things that folks are talking about here. How have you, with your brands are such natural fits, where have you found over the years that plugging in a Disney brand plus a cool thing going on at Target, some kind of promotion, some kind of in-store activity, where have you found that like 1 + 1 can equal 4 or 5, or the conversions that you want and the impressions that you want? Does anything, as I ask that, anything jump to mind for you, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, Disney is an incredible partner to Target. We consider ourselves friends and colleagues, and we collaborate together all the time, day in and day out on our regular business, but also at special moments. And we were just talking about, we just did an exclusive drop at Target of Disney IP with Lego. So what gets really fun is when we can come together and create new value for the consumer, but then you can also attach it to one more thing, right? So Disney, Target, and Lego is really special. We're doing that on the regular in our business, and we are also doing that through something we call Saturday Spectaculars, which is in-store events. So every Saturday at Target, you can come and experience something new, and Disney is a regular player in our activities at Target.
Rita, from your perspective,
Yeah, I think
what's been most effective?
I think we do a lot around big premiere launches, so big movie launches. I remember when Taylor Swift and her concert came on to the Disney Plus platform. That was a big opportunity we worked on with Target. So I would say every time you see a big movie launch, we tend to have big retail partnerships as part of that. And because of the massive licensing relationship we have with many brands, that Target is a premier destination for them, that becomes a really interesting play for us, because it's like Michelle said, you bring the brands with the IP and the distribution, that's what consumers are looking for.
It's interesting too, Michelle, that you mentioned like that special moment in a person's life, somebody's birthday, that you have that in common in the sense that, people want to go to Disneyland, or they might give somebody a favorite movie for a birthday. And Target is a place where people are going to go and get, oh, I got that great gift. I'm going to get that sweater. I'm going to get that, is that something that guides your marketing? Like you want to be there for something that is going to be very personal in a person's life, rather than, emphasizing, price or value, those kinds of things. We're trying to get at sort of how the marketing mindset, how the thinking about what you approach and when you do it, how that's changing in the attention economy world that we live in.
It's a great question, and it's something we think about every day, honestly. And I would start with the fact that, probably not dissimilar from Rita and the Disney team, we think about Target and our brand as an experience, and that's where we start. So the actual sales, or that last click, is the impact of what we create upstream. So it's really important for us that we're thinking about our brand, the experience, the story we want to tell at any given time. It might be a big macro story like the season, but it might also be a micro story. But that's where we spend our time and energy. So we have teams that are just focused on understanding what people are interested in, what new trends are coming, to make sure that we can show up for you every single day, because you know what? Every single day there's special moments that happen, and the big occasions as well.
I hear you. Rita, let me ask you the same thing. How much is your team thinking about, oh, here's an opportunity around a holiday or an event, or we have a big movie? I know you did a lot of stuff, a lot of great promotional stuff around The Devil Wears Prada 2, which was just a natural vehicle for you. How are you having to think about things differently? How are you having to bring new skills to the table as you try to deliver these, much more elaborate, bespoke partnerships that really have impact on consumers?
Yeah, well, I'll use an example of an announcement we made yesterday with Flowcode, right? So Flowcode is a company that uses QR codes to create experiences, Shopify, enhanced experiences. And we did a partnership with them and with Publicis around college football and College Football Saturday, because
a fairly passionate topic.
A fairly passionate audience, too.
Yes. Roll Tide. Sorry, I just had to say it. Roll Tide.
I love that. And so, you have thousands of fans that are on college campuses who show up every week, every single week, week after week, to experience it live. That's right. And yet, how many more are watching on TV that want to have that experience on site but can't be there? But we want to give them the opportunity to participate and receive promotions and offers and content and all kinds of enhanced experiences from the brands who are on site and present. And so this will allow us to create those immersive platforms that allow us to really enhance the consumer experience, whether you're on site or on TV, and really take advantage of all of that. So it's, how do I make the brands feel more connected to the customer and the fan through experiences that they're already investing in, but giving them more vehicles to touch?
I love that, and I think what you are touching on, Rita, is we are moving from just an experience economy to, it's definitely about experience, but the next click in is participation. And that's something that we are really studying at Target right now is people want to participate in their lives again, right? Everything is served up to us constantly. Things are automatic. They're almost too easy. And people want to participate in game day. They want to get behind, Alabama.
Yes, exactly.
Do their thing. Look at what happened in New York City with the Knicks. I mean, incredible, right? Like, everybody was a Knicks fan last Saturday night. It's incredible. People want to be a part of something. So we are architecting into the moments that happen naturally in retail, but we're also finding fandom moments that we can orchestrate as well. And limited time only drops are a really big part of that equation for Target. When we drop in a collaboration like Roller Rabbit or Park, the fandom ignites and people get to play and they get to discover together.
There's so many interesting things to explore. What is so interesting to me is that obviously you can plan, when a movie's coming out, when Valentine's Day is, every year. But there's so many of these things like the Knicks, which again, us Americans cannot overstate how the Knicks became America's team. Yep. And I think America really needed the Knicks, The Knicks needed America and America needed the Knicks. But it really did. It was the kind of thing that drew us together, and that is sports at its best. But how do you, I keep going back to how do you translate these ideas into, how do you measure it down? How do you measure your ROI? How do you measure your returns? Obviously, sales go up, great measure. But when you're, when you're looking at when you're doing your campaign wrap-ups and things and trying to understand, what was the value of having something in this moment, and what I started to say was also reaching those moments can be, you've got a short window to be activated. You probably have to be a lot more nimble to really grab onto a moment for something that can't be sort of pre-planned. Is that something that is a challenge for you?
Yeah, how we measure, and I'm super curious your thoughts as well, but we are talking a lot right now about how we move beyond just ROI to what we're calling return on relationship, return on influence, return on experience. It's a longer tail. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy to measure, but the halo impact that then eventually brings the ROI is incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and it pays dividends. And one example I might offer is last year we made the decision to take over our Soho store in Target. So we're right in the heart of the fashion district in New York, in Soho, and we turned the store into a concept store. And it's actually a marketing store now. And it's our ability to actually, yes, we sell product, but it's our ability to try new things, experiment, tell stories in new ways. And it's been phenomenal because not only is it a great place for us to showcase our brand, people want to come and play. So the Knicks, we had a really great relationship with Karl Anthony Towns because he used to be a Timberwolf in Minneapolis, which is where we are based. And we reached out after they won, and we said, hey, any chance you want to swing by? And he said, absolutely. So we posted content yesterday of he and Jordan stopping by Soho, curating a little display for us, and posting content. And so we got in on the fandom in a really agile way because we've taken the store kind of offline to make it a marketing store.
That is so funny, and that's a perfect example of somebody on your team connected. Karl, you said he's from Minneapolis. That's just great, and that shows me that so much. Not to suggest that it ever was formulaic, but the level of individual kind of brainstorm that can then bring to bear something that is seen. It's pretty incredible. Let me ask you. We could talk for another hour. But let me ask you about you. I think it's interesting because Disney touches so many consumers in so many ways, and you do have a big retail business. Yep. Obviously, Target has a very big retail business. Do you ever share the inputs? You get so many consumer inputs. You can see what is trending in people's lives, and I'm sure there's so much data that you have. Are you able to share data and get joint insights from the kind of unique touch that you have and you have?
So I'll start. We do that with many of our brand partners. We have obviously clean room integration set up with all of the major brands we work with and holding companies. And so many times as part of the campaign partnerships, they bring their first party data, we bring our first party data and match it to do outcomes and target specific audience segments and really make sure that the content that's resonating with the right audience at the right time has the right ad in front of it, obviously. And that's especially true in live, where I think it's exactly what you were talking about. You have to be ready for the moment. You don't know when it's going to happen, but live allows you to create that spontaneity and that creative decision in real time. And so we've invested a lot in technology, obviously, with the size of live portfolio we have to make sure that we can take advantage of those moments where you can really drive resonance and results as part of putting the right at the right moment.
And that is, I mean, that is truly, like, AI tools are doing it in a way that you could have 1,000 people.
And knowing who our audience
watching
segment
it,
is,
yeah.
right? So when you have an audience graph the size that we do, that we've been investing in for a long time, that understands our audience across all of our business and can really tap into culture and the moments that are driving that conversation. Because again, live drives culture conversation. It's not actually only the moment, it's what's happening before. People are preparing for the game, they're buying, they're going to tailgate together. It's community in the moment and then afterwards.
Right.
Because you know that when your team loses, you're thinking about that for the next week. When your team wins, you're on a high for a very long time, and that's a shared experience. You know it from your Buffalo Bills, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna show some restraint, but go Bills for the Super Bowl.
Yes.
But again, what you're talking about, like the game, is so important to Disney and ESPN, and it's important to you as people go buy their chips and their dip, and it's really the way you two can thread. Let me ask you your perspective, Michelle, in terms of the data that you get. Are you able to kind of track consumer trends in a way that really helps you in your job in reaching more people?
Absolutely. I mean, data is what powers our intelligence, and when we can come together and know that much more about the consumer or the shopper, our guest, because of us coming together, it's incredible. And I think where we find the greatest success is with a brand like Disney or any other brand, or just in our daily business, is when we are using that intelligence, then that's fueling creativity. So it's a combination of the data and intelligence and the human capital of imagining what could be, what's the next idea. So the combo of the two is where we see the power.
Absolutely. In our waning minutes here, last question. What would you say in terms of either, tools or metrics? I know we've been talking about trends, but like a tool or a metric that has really been a game changer for you that like didn't even exist 5 years ago? Anything jump to mind?
I mean, for us, it's been just the optimization of our algorithms that allow us to do much more in real time and service a volume of marketers that we would never have been able to do as a direct. Right? So the growth and explosion of automation in our business allows us to service a marketplace better, faster, and with better results.
Pretty good.
I would say on top of that, one thing that we have been playing around with is synthetic testing, so synthetic audience testing, and it's pretty tremendous. It is the insights that you can gather is pretty unbelievable, and what we love about it is the rapid speed in which you can test and get a response and then be able to make a decision and move forward.
So forgive me, that's like based on inputs from consumers, and then you can sort of use some tools to extrapolate from there. When you say synthetic, I'm trying to understand what that is.
It's generative AI, so it's basically doing synthetic audience testing.
Right.
So audience lookalike, but the speed in which you're able to do it and the detailed type of information that you get back is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is amazing. So many frontiers. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, audience, for sticking with us. We so appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. There is much more to come from Variety and Canva today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What I love about this panel is the contrast between Taco Bell, which is one brand, very, useful, right? I'm not saying, but I mean, it's like a younger brand, and it's one brand.
Yeah.
And Heinz, which regroups many legacy brands. But you both are very, very close to your fans and have a very similar approach. And so we're going to start with one example, which I think is very telling, is how Taco Bell worked with LeBron James on
Yes.
bringing back the Taco Tuesday, liberating the Taco Tuesday.
Bring Taco Tuesday, yes.
Tell us about this campaign, because I heard about it even in France. Even though we
Yeah.
don't have Taco Bell, I heard about the Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, well, first I got to ask, are there any Taco Bell fans in the house? Woo. Okay, we got some of my people in the house. That was a really fun one, and I think one of the things that we believe in as a brand is actions over words. You can't just say what you're about, you actually have to do something and take a step that shows your fans and consumers that you're gonna put your money where your mouth is. So that year, we wanted to do something that gave taco culture back to all of the people that own it, because humbly, we're not the only ones that make, celebrate, and sell tacos. So the idea to liberate Taco Tuesday and free the trademark for anybody to use was kind of the idea. And I got us thinking on, well, who's a big fan? Who has tried to do this? And just so happens, King James himself had tried to celebrate Taco Tuesday or liberate Taco Tuesday on his own unsuccessfully. So what a fun partnership for us to actually help one of the biggest athletes in the world do something he couldn't do on his own. And that's how the campaign was born. And at the time, it was our biggest campaign ever in 2023.
Oh, wow, amazing. And one of the things that you guys have to do is really move fast to kind of capture the zeitgeist. And there is one instance, of course, when you're a legacy group like Heinz, it's probably harder to move fast. But one instance where you moved very, very fast was with Kendrick Lamar's song Mustard. How did that happen? Like, you actually created a mustard right on time by the Grammys. Like, how did you make it happen?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, last year, you're referring to last year around before the Super Bowl and the Grammys, Kendrick Lamar had a great album with the song Turn the TV Off, and his producer, whose name is Mustard, was DJ Mustard, and he shouted Mustard in one of his songs, much better than I just did. And we said, well, we make a mustard, and by the way, and this guy Mustard, his name is Dijon. He's actually a big fan of Heinz. We got in touch with him. We moved very quickly, and we partnered with him to create a limited edition mustard that is a new flavor of mustard that we dropped, and we came out with the spot and hacked that moment. But I think it's interesting you talk about we're a big company at Kraft Heinz with 70 brands across 50 categories, so a lot of different brands that have been around for 100, 150 years, but we can still move with speed and agility, you know, even down to the fact this last week with all the World Cup excitement going on. I don't know if you guys saw that a lot of international people coming into the U.S. are trying to smuggle out ranch dressing, which is one of the best American delicacies, I would see. And so the TSA at the airport security, you're seeing bottles of dressing confiscated because you can't bring it on the flight because it's a liquid. So within 24 hours, we said, hey, well, we have these little 3.4-ounce sachets of ranch, made them available in a collective, in a clear, case, a carry-on case, and giving them out to consumers so they can take the equivalent of a bottle home with them that still clears through security. So with Kraft ranch dressing. So there's a lot of opportunities as you think of these big brands where you can still be listening and participating in culture pretty quickly by just being agile and moving quick.
And it's not just about famous people, right? Working with fans is also something that you do super well. There is one example that I thought about was how Ori Ida, which is one of the brands that is part of Heinz, and Ori Ida chose a young basketball player who is not famous, obviously, but his great-grandfather invented the tater tot. So first of all, can you tell us what is a tater tot? Because maybe some
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
that's probably a more complicated story to this audience. So we'll start with a couple education here for the international
I'd love to know
audience.
the background on the tater tot. So
Here's
I'm
the thing.
listening.
So first, another American delicacy is the tater tot, which is like a fried potato puff, delicious. You dip it, it's crispy on the outside, soft in the middle, delicious. They're amazing. We have a brand called Ore-Ida that makes frozen tater tots. And around the college basketball tournament in the U.S., March Madness is very big. When that was coming up that last year, there was a player on one of the teams, Brigham Young University, this player, Richie Saunders. It just was discovered in a post-game interview that his great-grandfather invented the tater tot and was actually one of the founders of Ore-Ida, and he was a star basketball player on the team. And so we're like, this is crazy. We got it. So we reached out to him very quickly. We partnered with him, and we built a whole program around it where people were holding up bags of tater tots in the stadium as they made the run. We made a tot clock where after every game for 35 minutes, we would give away free tater tots, and literally drove more conversation than many official partners through by just hopping on this moment and leaning into that insight.
Do you have like a team of people who search through the internet to find the right fans that are going to be like so compelling like that?
I mean, you know how this works. It's real time. Most of the best ideas, and I'm sure Taylor, I'd love to hear from you too. Like a lot of the best ideas are unbriefed, right?
True.
And it's about just having a real fluid conversation. We have group text chats. We have our agencies on speed dial and just listening. And you see and participate in culture day to day, and you see things and say, hey, is there something we can do here? And just having that real-time discussion.
No, I would just build on Todd's point. I mean, we have a pretty big social infrastructure at Taco Bell. We have a team of 21-year-olds who run everything on social. But to Todd's point, that creates the muscle to listen. But the best ideas just come from that spark of an insight. Somebody in the hallway, hey, I saw this thing. What should we do about it? Or just like a hunch. I love that tater tot example, by the way. It's a good one.
It's good. It's fun.
And there are also examples of like superstars, I mean, very big stars who are actually also like genuine fans. And sometimes they take, social media, they use social media to advocate for things such as the Mexican pizza.
That's right.
So what happened there? Dolly Parton apparently was a big fan.
I think one of the really fun things about Taco Bell, and I saw some Taco Bell people in the house, is it's one of those brands that's a great democratizer because everybody, no matter where you are, where you live, where you're from, no matter how famous you are, Taco Bell is just one of those things that if you are a Taco Bell fan, you share that with everyone. So when we turn out and do big campaigns like the Mexican pizza, I always think it's shocking on who comes out of the woodwork. I had no idea Dolly Parton was a huge Mexican pizza fan. We did something with Paris Hilton, like the volcano menu was her favorite thing. Had no idea. LeBron James and Taco Tuesday. We just signed and are about to launch a new campaign with Fernando Mendoza, who's the #1 draft pick. No idea that in Miami, Taco Bell and the Crunchwrap were his favorite things growing up. So I think that's the beautiful part about the brand is it's something that a lot of people have in common. It humanizes people that seem more famous, and it makes the brand really accessible.
And so what about like working with some identified talent? Like for instance, yesterday I moderated a chat with the executive from Pepsi who was talking about working with an Oscar-winning filmmaker to direct the latest Pepsi campaign during the Super Bowl. I wondered how is it important also for you to have this kind of filmmaker vision when you're working on campaigns?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is over the years you have the pleasure of working with a lot of great directors, filmmakers. I think you're referring to when we did the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show, this thing called The Call, where it was about Dre and Snoop and Eminem coming together. But when you work with a lot of filmmakers over the years, and no matter what it is, what we're doing at Kraft Heinz or beyond, like, it's really all about just great storytelling at the end of the day and making sure that when you connect these things to culture, it doesn't always have to be a 30-second spot. A lot of times it's a digital piece of content that travels a lot further. Sometimes it's just a key visual that's shot so interestingly. And so there's a lot of craft that goes into making these things travel as well.
And so also the other thing that's important is to get feedback, as we were saying, from the users, like the people. What are the elements that you have that helps you kind of track the reactions from fans and from people on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my perspective. I think the first and foremost thing is listen to your team. Your team, my team, is more plugged into culture and what people are selling about the brand and have a more diverse point of view than I do on how people are thinking and receiving us. You absolutely have to trust and listen to your team because they're going to bring you insights and ideas that you maybe hadn't thought of. I think the second part is you also have to be a student of your own brand. You got to go and read what's going on in the comments when you have a piece of content. What are people actually saying about your brand on Reddit? It's a very dark place, but it's a great place. Go deep. Go figure out what are the real conversations because a lot of the times as brand builders, Todd, as you know, we may have an idea on how we want consumers to receive us, but at the end of the day, that might be our intuition, but not what's happening. And I would say the other part is like, for our categories that are so big, everything is a focus group. Everybody will have an opinion on your brand, what you're doing right, what you're not doing right, and you really have to be like humble and open your ears and listen. And I found some of the best insights about the brand from talking to parents at my kids' dance practice. You get a lot of great insights and raw feedback from that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that as a brand builder, you need to, there's a lot of formal tools of, we'll get insights reports and we'll do focus groups and we'll talk to people. The good stuff is, as you said, like way beyond all that. And I think just being curious, go into the Reddit chat room, go into TikTok and just scroll around, see and understand and have these social listening tools. You can really see very quickly how your brand is being consumed. If there's new things, there's a lot of even things where we're learning about some of our categories, how they use them differently. We have a brand in Jell-O that's been around for 130 plus years. And when you think of like someone making a Jell-O mold, that's like a very old school behavior. What we're finding on TikTok is as new generations discover it, they're mixing it with yogurt and having flavored color, different flavored yogurts. They're mixing it with Cool Whip and freezing it into ice cream. There's a lot of ways using it as an ingredient brand. So as you start to look at these behaviors, figure out how to inform them into your business moving forward, a lot of the best learning is just by being a student of the world and seeing what's out there.
And I mean, we were talking about, having this kind of emotional bond with the fans. And the other thing that tends to work is also to kind of shock the fans, right? To go beyond what they expected. How do you achieve that?
Yeah, I think it's a balance between two things, and I'll give an example. And I think this is the balance that as marketers and brand builders, we always have to walk. I think part of our responsibility when you are the steward of big brands and culture, Todd, like you are as well, and like Taco Bell is, you have to have a strong point of view on where the brand should be and play a role in culture. And for Taco Bell, we really strive to and believe that we should be creating culture, not just borrowing from it, and creating things and innovating things that are going to inspire people to do the same. And then that might be your agenda, but then you also got to listen to what consumers say as well. So I think it's a balance of those two things. And I think when you get those right, that's when you really surprise fans. So I don't know if anybody had seen Live Moss Live, which is our big show. There's a nod. Thank you. I knew there was somebody that actually watched the whole thing. I'm sorry that you did. But it actually came from two things. One, we wanted to do something that was big, bold, and disruptive that put us on the map as being the most innovative brand in the world. I mean, we're a top 10 innovative brand and fast company. We wanted to do something like that. But how to do that actually came from Reddit. So on Reddit, before we launch a new product, somebody would leak what the product was. And so that kind of pissed us off, honestly, for a while. But there was something there. And what we found is the hardcore Taco Bell fans just wanted the inside track. They wanted to know before anybody else what was going on. And so we said, well, fine, why don't we just share what all of our innovation, all of our big idea is with our closest group of friends and doing it in a really innovative way. Our first couple of years were like an Apple keynote. Last year was our version of an award show. So that's a great example of what we were trying to do as a brand and then listening to consumers. And when you get those two things together, that's where you get something that really takes off in culture.
And so we talked about looking online to kind of get a sense of the reactions and stuff. And what about using AI? Kind of help you also creatively. Do you do it?
Yeah, I think AI is increasingly going to be changing the forefront of marketing and how we approach things. Both as an internal tool from a development standpoint, we're working on a tool right now called Tastemaker that we can make a piece of creative in anywhere from 8 hours, what would have typically taken 8 weeks, right? As you think about the creative development process, and so how you can develop custom content at scale. But I also think, as you look at AI, I think we talk a lot about these organic channels like Reddit, like YouTube organic with creators. Like a lot of these organic channels are going to matter even more in the future. As you think of where these LLMs are scraping and where they're getting data, they're not looking at paid media, right? And so what they say about your brand, how your brand shows up, when someone says, what's a good restaurant I should eat at for under $5? What's something I should have for my meal on Friday night with my family? You need to make sure your brand's organically showing up. And so participating organically in the right channels, like the Reddits, like the YouTubes, like, through your own social owned, earned, and operated channels, I think is going to be increasingly important.
Yeah, I got my partner in crime here, our Chief Digital and Technology Officer in the front row. And I think one of the things that we're working on, honestly, is using AI to actually make our guest experience more human. So what we're finding is using AI in the drive-thru, what it's doing is it's taking the weight and the burden from our team members that's the most stressful part of their job. Keying in whatever your order is, making sure that Todd's Bean Burrito, which is a high-maintenance order, gets entered in accurately and correctly. So using AI to do those things to give the team member time and space so when Todd shows up to the window, they can have a great interaction. They can have a human moment with you and say, hey, Todd, you know what? Have you ever tried your bean burrito with this? Or, hey, have you tried this new thing? And voice AI for us in the drive-thru is a way that's allowed our team members to honestly be more human. So that's an example of how we're actually applying it to the business.
And just so you get it right, it's a Crunchwrap Supreme and a Mexican pizza for me. That's the go-tos. So.
Yeah, I know. We know.
So I just want to wrap up on something that's a bit thoughtful. I want you to kind of reflect on the cultural trends right now that you're seeing. Maybe you've been looking at sessions here at Cannes Lions. What are the things that interest you about the future of your jobs? Like how is it going to impact the way you work?
You're ending on just a really light question.
Sorry.
I'll go first. I'll go first. I think looking at a lot of the work at the Palais, talking to a lot of brands and other leaders, I think the bar for brands and our responsibility to have real, meaningful relationships with consumers is higher than it's ever been. And it links a little bit to your AI question. I think when it was programmatic before and now it's AI, I think there can be this tendency for brand builders and brands to get too tactical and focus on lower funnel. And I think what Gen Z and Gen Alpha who's coming up, what they want is they want to really understand what you believe in and do your values align with them. And if you tell me that you believe in creativity like Taco Bell and I'm a creative person, are you really showing up that way? Are you inspiring me to do the same? So I think the bar for brands to be real, honestly, is higher than it's ever been. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, I think the role of brands is going to matter more and more increasingly to consumers, especially as they get information in different ways, the shorthand of how you discover new products, new brands, new things of that. And so I think what's interesting is the concept of brand building hasn't changed for the last 20, 30, 40 years. Just the canvas that you paint on is changing very rapidly in terms of the media channels, in terms of the way you interact with consumers. And that's what I think is the most exciting and inspiring, especially being here and you walk the Palais, you see the work. Trying to find new ways to engage, connect with consumers, become the content itself, be organically. Consumers are going to more opt into brands. There's going to be more of a tribalism like you're already seeing around brands like Taco Bell, like Heinz, where fans really seek out content from those brands. And I think that's going to be an increasing trend we're going to see a lot more in the future.
Amazing. So my last question is going to be for you, Taylor. When are you bringing Taco Bell to France? We need Taco Bell on the croissant.
Well, I don't know if there's anybody that's French that thinks Taco Bell could work. I mean, that's a live fire focus group. I think we maybe have one taker, 2, 3, 4.
Of course it would work.
Okay, well that's we'll
work
on it. Seems like there's some pull.
The Mexican
Taco on the
crepe.
baguette.
It's a big idea. Just think about it.
That's
right here. It happened on this stage.
Thank you guys so much.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, so we're here to talk about AI. What does it mean for marketing, personal connection? How do we maintain that human element in the age of AI? So let me just start with, how do each of you think about the possibilities of AI in the context of advancing creativity and personal connection? That's the lead-off question.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I think, there are so many conversations right now about AI. I'm sure there's not a stage that exists any day I can where someone is not mentioning it. And, what I feel as if has evolved a bit is it does feel as if we're talking more about the human than just about AI. And I hope that next year we're not talking about it as an it anymore, and we're just really talking about it as a method and a tool, and we're getting back to really talking about the work.
So that it's operationalized.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I will say I have never underestimated and also overestimated AI more and actually what it can do. In some ways, it's really amazing how it helps you find insights and really get specific to us being able to reach consumers that we've never been able to reach before in the right way. And the fact that you can now actually do messages that are relevant for them, that matters. At the same time, it doesn't always mean that it's delivering the best. That's like a derivative content conversation. When we start talking about the best creative, that still has a lot of human influence.
Yeah, And for you, Asmita.
I'll go back a bit, YouTube reached 1 billion users in 2013. Instagram reached 1 billion users in 2018. Then e-commerce came and there was a lot of augmented reality and virtual try-ons in the journey. And TikTok reached 1 billion users in 2021. Now, through all of that, beauty journeys were democratized. There was more beauty, with digitalization. And I feel now as OpenAI and Google and all are reaching billions of users, I feel in terms of marketing, AI will augment both the consumer journey as well as the marketeer journey, and really looking forward to what you are mentioning.
Yes. Yeah.
So what are the key trends here? And I guess one of the big questions is, how do you prevent AI-enabled marketing from becoming generic, right? Because the AI system is designed to create the lowest common denominator in a way. Is that a challenge? Is that an opportunity? Is it just a question of how do you incorporate it?
So it's nice to be able to answer this question in front of an amazing CMO, because I will tell you, the best ones aren't going to let that happen. The best CEOs are not going to let that happen. Because when you actually care about what you are providing to your consumer, you know that you have to include creators, you have to include like the human influence and some of the friction that makes something special. You understand that. And I think in the beauty world, you understand that significantly, because there are lots of options. And so if you are not distinctive, and if you're not building some type of loyalty connection to your consumer, they're going to choose someone else.
Yeah, I'll build on that, and I'll talk about the consumer journey. So as LLMs are becoming the new front door to beauty discovery, we are thinking about 3 questions. We are thinking about, are we appearing in the answer layer? Then we are thinking about, well, if beauty is a conversation, how are we shaping that conversation when everything is becoming like a chat? And we have been very good in e-commerce over the last 10 years. How are we going to become the agentic commerce category captains in beauty? So those are the 3 questions we are thinking. And just to elaborate a little more on the first one, how do you appear in the answer layer? It's a content transformation. And it's a content transformation in terms of, do you have medical journals, credible content? Does your product appear? And that's why La Roche-Posay does so well for us. It's about brand content, and does the brand content have the right transcripts? Can the machine read it on the websites, etc.? And it's a product data, and is our product data rich enough? So all in all, it's a big content transformation that we all have to do.
Yeah, there is this question of you have to market to the machines in a way. Is that a way to think about making your marketing message machine readable?
I wouldn't say market to the machine, but I will say, as Mita highlighted, it is truly about your data structures. Like, do you have structured data that actually allows like anyone to find you, both your consumers and LLMs? I will share, when you start, I spend a lot of time talking about agentic commerce, and when you start having conversations about what does it mean to be discoverable, you actually find that a lot of people are like, oh, we have brand guidelines. But then you pull out the brand guideline and it hasn't been updated in a while. All it is, it talks about descriptors. It doesn't give any context. And when people shop today, they shop more not just about the it, but about what's happening around it. There's a different type of intent. It's also about experience. You look and you say, I am going to Cannes, and I know it's going to be 100 degrees, and what is the best makeup? And that is how you make a decision. You don't just say, what's the perfect lip color? And that is what's changing. So I actually think we are creating data sets and enriching the data in a way that touches more consumers versus less.
Totally agree.
Let me ask this.
Do that.
Good.
Where, there are going to be different levels of adoption. What are the companies that are most forward-looking? Where are they in the journey of AI adoption and operationalizing that piece of it? And where would you put L'Oreal in terms of Do you need to do?
I would use, so I just say, I think L'Oreal is a great example.
Well, I will tell you, I spoke to you about the consumer journey and the marketeer journey, right? So I'm separating the two a bit because what is the consumer seeing and what are the marketeers doing? So let me talk about the marketeer journey here. And every bit can have a bit of AI. Think about insight generation. So we are taking about 100,000 documents of our company and putting a knowledge management layer. So when we do proprietary beauty research, people can read it in a few minutes and summarize it. When it comes to creation, and there's a lot of talk about creation because we are in the festival of creativity, then you can use a multiple models, agencies, different operating models, but all in all to augment creativity, whether it's Nano Banana or Adobe Firefly or tools from you, Accenture. So we are using that at scale, and Createch is our Gen AI content platform, which thousands of marketeers are using. Then when it comes to, and I'm going to finish in a minute, so we have talked about, insight creation. Marketing is activation, AI-powered media. AI-powered media means better strategic direction so that the execution can be automated. And even measurement, when you do MMMs, etc., you can democratize it using AI. So throughout the value chain, you can create value for the marketeers, and that is what we are a bit busy with at the moment.
It's great. It's great. I agree. +1.
I was going to ask you, so do you have a specific example of where AI provided some sort of insight or a creative inspiration that you might not have gotten from a human team or something like that?
I'm going to try and give a few examples in one. Okay. So one of the things that we have found, if you think about the process today is long, even when it's fast. When you think about what it takes to, when you're thinking about the concept and the idea, and then you're briefing the agency, and then someone is doing that often manually, you're briefing. Then after you're briefing, the agency gets it, and they start to show iterations in different territories, and then you're like, no, you didn't understand the brief. And then you're going back and forth for a period of time before you even get to the point of shooting. Okay, so what that means is you're not testing, you actually don't know yet. What AI allows you to do from a prototyping perspective, it allows you to imagine what it could feel like, what it could look like in much shorter period of time. It allows you to take your voice, which your language is actually probably the most natural way of coming up with ideas. You can change that into a brief. You can change that into an image. You can change that into a video, just to prototype concepts before you even make a decision. And so when you start thinking about how do we come up with, I actually believe that after we get through sort of maybe a still learning phase, we're actually going to be at the point where we deliver better products, better experiences, and better content because we would have tested and tried more.
Yeah, once you get experience, it's going to be better, right?
No, I'm going to build on what you're saying, Ndidi. To take that example of prototyping, I'll give you an example which we don't think about all the time. We have a lot of luxury brands, and luxury brands have retail. And retail design, it's so beautiful, right? Have you seen our airports and travel retail? Now we are seeing our brands like Valentino and all do all their retail design on AI first, because you can try so many different varieties and shelves and then create it or post-produce it, because you can't create a shelf as quickly. So that is bringing your idea to life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true.
What is the value of using AI to do, synthetic testing of how well a creative piece is going to perform? Is that something that you're doing or looking at? Is there value in it?
Yeah, we are testing it for sure. So our consumer and market intelligence teams are working with Kantar and Ipsos to do some synthetic testing. But I think even more than that, the whole content process can go faster. And I would focus more on that than just a single use case and a single instance of something, because the process itself is going through a change.
Agreed. And, I actually think, Todd, I think it's an and. I think so often, in this world where we want to be so polarizing, it is, do you use it, do you not? Do you only use human? And I actually believe that it should be both.
It's an input, right?
It's an input, and you should not value one over the other. But I also want to say that our human collection wasn't great either. And we would say we were pulling diverse groups, and it was never really diverse. We would say that you can only do a certain subset. And what AI allows you to do is not just through synthetic personas, but also gather more insights across from actual humans.
And at some point, you just have to have a gut instinct and take a risk, right? In the entertainment world, films test great, and then they bomb at the box office.
Very true.
Or vice
Very
versa.
true.
So you don't exactly know what's going to ring the bell.
And I'm not sure synthetic personas would have been the answer, or the test group wasn't necessarily the answer. I think it's both of them.
So Esmita, for you, L'Oreal, beauty brand, luxury brand, it's deeply personal, very emotional roots in the brand, right? More than 100 years old. How do you maintain that authenticity and that personal connection with AI? And I think we've been talking about how you manage this whole process and maintain the core of your brand messaging, right?
Now, I'll shift gears. Consumer journey, marketer journey. Think about beauty, which has always been a conversation. It is a conversation between generations, mother to daughter, conversation shaped by experts. And with AI, the experience is becoming a chat now. Everybody is chatting. So our objective is to redefine that dialogue. And to redefine that dialogue, you need structured, unstructured data, product data, information on how consumers speak. So Beauty Genius is one example, which is an AI-powered personal beauty advisor, but it is fed by all the knowledge of the L'Oréal Paris brand and L'Oréal Group's scientific knowledge. So you can ask questions to it. And coming to the human part, people ask very intimate questions. So they ask questions about, I'm a teenager, I'm suffering with acne, what should I do about my fine lines? Maybe I'm losing some hair, and can you give me some advice? And that intimacy can be the only thing is that we have to be a definitive source of truth, that what comes out should be credible as an answer. And therefore, that is our focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, by the way, I'm losing hair too. So
Okay.
Well, Beauty Genius.
I need some of your
You need
products.
to go to L'Oreal. Yeah.
What were you going to say? Didi, I was going to ask. Go ahead.
I actually, one of the things that I just want to amplify is it is creating a different relationship with the consumer. And I also believe that for most companies, it allows them to actually think about how they can play different roles in the consumer's life after they've built that trust.
All right. Well, I think we have time for one last round of questions. I would ask this: what excites you most about the future, and what advice would you have to people who have questions about AI in terms of what are the success factors, right?
Okay, I
It's
can
a
go
two-part
first.
question.
I think we should be more demanding of AI. I think if you look at the last decade of marketing, there has been so much fragmentation of the consumer journey, upper funnel, lower funnel, online, offline, fragmentation of the marketer journey, e-commerce marketing, brand marketing, content marketing, fragmentation of this ecosystem and Cannes Lion. I think we should demand from AI, what can you do to bring the consolidation so that there can be more end-to-end processes, solutions, tools, conversations, but just be more demanding of AI.
It's good. I will say I am always hopeful for the future. I always believe that a better way will be found. And I do think that one of the things that happens now is that we spend a lot of time talking about AI being, I would say, cost-driven, productivity-driven, and we don't spend enough time talking about how AI can be a growth driver, how it can be a catalyst of us reaching new consumers, a catalyst for us engaging with our teams in a different way, a catalyst for us to learn and solve more than what we've ever had before, and that is what makes me excited and inspired about what's to come.
Do you sense in general, a desire to do that?
Yes, yes. I think it's hard. It's hard. And
Why is it hard?
Well, you know what you find often for a lot of organizations is that there's a lot of analysis. As Mita said, it's so fragmented. How do you make the right decision? And some make no decision. And so they just stay in this limbo state where they don't make movement, and then 12 months has gone by and nothing has changed. So that's hard. And then also it is hard to change people. This is this is a human conversation, and it's really, really challenging to just try and flip a switch because you turned on the AI, and then all of a sudden you expect people to change.
You're trying to change the culture of an organization.
Yeah, there are tensions, right? If you're on the street, you see the tension. To me, there are three tensions. What can AI do? What can AI not do? Are we demanding enough to change the industry? The second, the power of the algorithm versus the culture, the power of culture and the power of algorithm. So there seems to be a tension. And then the whole tension around skills. Are there just AI skills? Are there human skills? Which one are we doing better? And I think that tension is okay, but at some point we need to resolve that tension and let it coexist, and then go on to the next part of the marketing shift.
Yeah, fascinating. We could keep going. I think we're out of time.
It's too hot. It's too hot.
It's too hot. Hot conversation. Thank you both. Nice to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, all right, so we're talking today about breaking through, it's highly fragmented media market, right? There's a lot to look at. There's a lot to watch and take your attention away. How do you break through that noise? We keep hearing Gen Z has a shorter attention span than their elders. We'll see if that changes, but it's true of my kids. But, let's just kick it off. How do you, is the definition of the attention economy becoming more nuanced or more challenging?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. And, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to represent the 26 brands you all know and love. And hopefully you're eating some M&Ms and Skittles and chewing gum while you're here at this beautiful but hot, wonderful location. But I don't think we should be surprised how different the culture is as it relates to gaining attention. 100 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but 100 years ago, there was just radio. And radio was what kept your attention. And then there was the visual with TV. And now we have so many ways to connect with consumers. And in that time period, consumers have gotten more savvy and more demanding about what they want. They don't want to be talked to, they want to engage with.
Right.
And because they want to engage, it's like any other relationship. You have to keep having conversations. You have to keep taking them on dates. You got to keep showing them new things and showing them different parts of you. And so I take that very, very seriously, to engage with consumers on a two-way relationship, not just message giving.
Yeah, so that's been true. How do you become part of the conversation, William?
Well, I think that the question of a short attention span, it kind of goes beyond just attention span. I think more and more today, what we're seeing is people are more discerning about where to spend time. I think they're more discerning, certainly today in the U.S., on where to spend their dollar. And so I think for brands, you've got to earn that attention. And you've got to give them a compelling reason to show up and show, fork out money for your brands. And so I think that really starts with being true to who you are as a brand, being true to your purpose and values, to be able to earn that time and again with customers.
Now, Walmart recently, I don't know if the campaign's still running, but you had Walton Goggins, right?
Yeah.
With the Who Knew. And
yep.
What was the purpose behind that? And I think that did stick out.
Yeah, so I think in the same way that it's hard to earn attention, if you're a storied brand like both of ours are that has been around for a long time, it's hard to change people's perceptions too.
Right.
Because there becomes a false familiarity about who
I know what Walmart is.
I know what Walmart is. It's been around for 60 plus years. It's a retailer that I drive to that has low price groceries. What we've done over the last several years is we put a tremendous amount of investment into our supply chain, into technology, into things that allow us to better serve our customers. But in doing so, while we've changed, the perceptions hadn't changed to the same degree. And so the campaign that we actually launched last summer, Who Knew, was really to fight against that false familiarity and to help people see that we're not just a physical grocery store, we're a digital first destination. And we're not just a place for groceries or your staples, but we have this long assortment that we can also get to you in 30 minutes. And so we brought in Walton Goggins. We built a campaign that really helped drive that reappraisal. And I think that the humor, the celebrity talent, the music, all of those choices helped us break through.
It did. And did you have, outcome? What were the outcomes? I mean, did you have measurable results?
Yeah, for sure. So, at the starting point, this campaign is about reappraisal, and we are seeing that. So the consideration numbers for Walmart are improving. The consideration for us from a longer tail part of our assortment is improving. But that's translating to sales. We are picking up more of our customers' wallets, and we're picking up new customers. We have so many, first time to fashion customers at Walmart right now, and the campaign is a big part of that.
Yeah. Gabrielle, let me ask you, when you think about media planning in this, million channel universe, how do you think about it now? And, is AI a tool here for you to optimize the spend across, retail media networks, online, TV, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that is really important is that marketers need to embrace AI. It's not just something that we talk about, right? But AI is a tool. It's a tool to amplify and accelerate creativity. These humans are still creative. Like, the creativity still comes from humans. I think that's not something that's going to go away. But how you amplify, accelerate, and scale that creativity, we have tools like AI that allow us to do that. And as we're talking about attention spans, I could make, a same creative idea, off of creative idea, I can make, multiple iterations of that in a very short period of time. So I can focus on the creativity and what's the next creative idea. So you take something like, consumers are really interested in lore. They want to find out the whys behind everything, right? And so, I don't know if you're like me, but, I can't just watch a show. I have to watch a show, see the cast, follow the cast, see where they went to school, what jobs they had. Anybody's following Love Island, you guys know all the lore, right? And so I think brands can take a page from that creativity, and we did that with the Skittles Fuego. So we launched Skittles Fuego gummies. They're a fiery, spicy gummy. And we created this lore that allows people to go down a rabbit hole, some positive doom scrolling as it relates to, how we came up with the idea, what other Easter eggs might be in there.
Love that.
And so that's the type of creativity that I think that we lose when we talk specifically about AI.
Okay.
AI is much more of a scaler and an amplifier and a tool that unleashes that human creativity.
But AI can give you a creative spark. No, like the yellow M&M should get antlers. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be that way, but the prompt is what gives AI its power.
Fair.
And so we
Okay.
have to be masters at prompting.
Yeah, a lot of training and upskilling.
Agree with everything there. The thing I'd add too is because of the way people are searching in AI, we're moving it from a world of inference to intent. And so we know so much more about what someone is looking for. We're not guessing based on some signal we've picked up. I mean, they're literally saying what it is. And so that just allows us to serve them better. It also allows us to be more anticipatory of their needs, more predictive of their needs. I mean, we're now building audiences that are, AI powered, if you will, in terms of giving us the intelligence, where we're anticipating life stages, or we're anticipating, different types of behaviors where we're seeing those shifts. It allows us to personalize in a way that makes us less transactional and more relationship based, because we're able to anticipate and serve up those needs to our customers in the moment.
Yeah, I think you kind of addressed a little bit of it, but what are the tools? What's the measurement like to understand? Yes, we're changing this relationship from being an interruptive advertising, a pest. we're not your we're your friend, right? We're not interrupting your whatever you're doing at the moment. Is it about the format? Is it obvious? What that is, or?
I think that it allows you to do things you've never done before. So we're here at the Cannes Lion for Creativity. We have a short list of wonderful campaigns, and one of those is called Deliver the Rainbow. It was a ad that we did during the Super Bowl on someone's lawn. And we asked people to submit, do you want a commercial filmed on your lawn? And we had thousands of people say, yes, please come to my home during my Super Bowl party and film, your ad. It's participatory. They were opting in. We didn't interrupt them. We gave them an option to engage with us.
Oh, that's smart.
And we had tons of people to engage with us. And it was really interesting, but very nerve-wracking for a marketer. I mean, can you imagine the day of the Super Bowl? I have a team, out in California. It happened to be in California. We were at someone's cul-de-sac, and their whole HOA and neighborhood were involved with this Super Bowl ad. But it was participatory.
Yeah.
They engaged in that, and we were really excited about it, and it worked out really well.
I'd also say shopping is a hobby. Shopping is part of culture, and so I think if we're doing our quote unquote advertising right in the way that we show up for people, we're making it an extension of activity that they want to be involved in and they can engage in. I mean, we see it more and more. The funnel is collapsing. The journey for customers isn't a linear like it was when we started our careers. And so if inspiration can strike anywhere, we want to be there to be able to close that transaction. In part, that's why the creator economy is growing so rapidly.
Right.
That's why we've invested into that. And I think that it's not really an ad if somebody's engaging in the content and shopping from it.
Well, and it comes back to building trust and authenticity with your target audience. How do you balance taking a risk in telling the lore of the brand, that might upset people who are loyal M&Mers or something like that? You take a risk. The NFL went through this with Bad Bunny, right? Not every NFL fan was happy to have Bad Bunny, whatever. But they took a risk, and the calculation was they were going to get a new sort of audience cohort that wasn't necessarily part of the NFL before. Long way of asking, how do you balance the risk reward here when it comes to making a creative decision, making a bold choice?
I think it goes back to the purpose and values of the brand. And so I think if you're staying true to that and you are really clear on who is your audience and what you want to communicate, and it feels like it's part of the DNA of the brand, that's going to be a win. I think where you see the missteps are if brands are kind of stepping outside of their lane from who they are, that doesn't generally work well. And so, I think having that clarity, that brand clarity, drives those decisions.
I totally agree. Authenticity has to be the key. What's good for Skittles is not good for M&Ms, and is not good for Twix, is not good for Snickers, is not good for Extra, right? So you have to know what the brand is about. But also, I would say as marketers, it's our job to take risks, to take calculated risk, and not everything is going to work out.
Right.
It's really more so, how do you bounce back from the risk that, failed, or the risk that didn't work out? Like, how do you bounce back from that? What do you learn from it? What do you do differently? But everything, in 52 weeks, everything that you do for your brand is not going to work out. I have plenty of graveyard stories of things that didn't work out. And then, just as many of stage celebrations that we feel really good about. But we have to start talking about the bad stuff.
Right.
Because that's how you learn
and we were talking about this a little bit. But, when you get a call from your CEO, like, what the hell was this? What happened? We got to do something about it. Do you talk them off the ledge?
I think the other important point is, we used to always think in terms of scale. Everything was about, how do I do something big, buy it big, get a mass reach. I think more and more where brands are winning is they're starting in a community. They're starting with a particular subculture, and they're building connections and stories from there that then emanate out. And so while that may be a risk if you're trying to go en masse with that, if you're actually building if you're making an informed decision to improve the relationship with a particular subculture or audience, and that has influence out, that's a good recipe for success.
Yeah. And how micro-targeted do we get in this? Like, are we, at a one-to-one marketing type of relationship at some point? Do we want to be there? Or is that edging into uncanny valleyness?
Yeah, I consider it personalization at scale, right? And so, when you are, as William mentioned, about communities, if you're engaging with communities are what affect culture. Because people always ask, like, how are you in culture? How do you get, it starts with building community, and then communities scale, and that's what equals culture. And so I wholeheartedly agree. I think this whole idea of go big or go home has been flipped on its head. It's like you have to scale to something versus going completely big, because that you're going to miss out. I have some brands that are for everybody, and then I have some brands that are for a community. Right. So that's the balance. And when you have a portfolio of brands, you have to be agile in how you bring those ideas to consumers.
But are we going to see an M&M's movie? Tell us.
Maybe. Our spokes candies are celebrities.
Yes.
Everybody feels like, they identify with a certain spokes candy. I personally identify with green. Green. Quite a bit. We are seeing them out on Love Island right now. As some of the bombshells. So, you never know.
Okay. And
I do want to address the question of, will we get to all one-to-one?
Okay.
Because I think that is a layer that is very important. But if marketers only went one-to-one, you really lose what does the brand stand for.
Okay.
And so it's important to have both of those layers, top-down and bottoms-up. And we also know that just thinking through the marketing funnel, for us, we see that when we have upper funnel marketing in place, it makes the lower funnel work harder. And so if we were all just on a one-to-one basis all the time, I think that's going to be, one, harder to drive the right level of return on that investment. But then two, I think, what does the brand stand for a big brand in the hearts and minds of the
Right,
customer?
you want a brand consistency.
Right.
So when you're talking about targeting these different communities, subcultures, it comes from the brand values.
Yeah, but exactly. And then you're learning what's important to a particular community, and you're looking for where is the equity in my brand that speaks to that community, and how do I bring that to life?
All right, we are just about out of time, but real quick, what's your thinking about targeting the upcoming generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha? Are they, is this an even different kind of equation that we're talking about?
I don't think it's different. At Walmart, we talk about being people-led and tech-powered. And I think throughout our marketing activities, the more tech that we do to drive, a greater level of personalization and understanding will be important. But I think young people crave humanity. They crave human connection. I think we're seeing a real drive of that with young people today. And so for us, having 1.5 million associates in our stores is an important advantage for us. The marketing that we do at a community level is really important for us. And I think having those ways to really show the human side of who we are is going to be maybe more important than ever with young people, and I think that's exciting.
Human nature is not going to fundamentally change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say for us, taste is always king. And, taste preferences change, but treating doesn't, right? And so we want to be any and everywhere, especially Walmart, where anyone thinks about treating themselves. And I think the younger generations give themselves more permission.
I think that's right.
To treat themselves than previous generations for lots of systemic reasons. And so just, I feel very privileged to, a lot of our brands are 100 or 85 years old, and it's my job to make sure that they're relevant for another 100, another 85 years. And, that's all built on the whole idea of treating yourself.
Yeah, that's the long view. Well, thank you both very much. William White, thank you
so
very
much.
Gabrielle from Mars Wrigley. Great conversation. Thank you, everybody, for being here today.
Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Talking about making moments matter. So I wanted to start by asking both of you to talk about a campaign that you recently oversaw and how you actually made it matter.
You want to go first? Up to you. Go ahead. Okay. First of all, we were talking about, I'm just happy to be doing anything with my friend Jill, so this is fun. We actually love to talk to each other. We're emotional support systems for one another. That should be a whole separate conversation. Look, we're already throwing your discussion guide into chaos.
We should have just had a camera backstage.
We just need a coffee clutch. It's too hot. Okay, let me see. I have been fortunate to be talking quite a bit about what we're doing with JCPenney the past couple of days, which I will admit as a marketer is not for the faint of heart to go after a true legacy mid-tier department store, but there's so much in that proposition that I've really fallen in love with, and the idea of getting past maybe some dated notions about it. A lot of people are like, oh, I shopped at JCPenney with my mom or my grandma. I'm like, come now, give it a try, and it's an alternative to a lot of places you shop, like off-price, which is why we sort of have created this declarative, like my dress is JCPenney, and
This is JCPenney. I wanted to.
Yeah. Bellevue, our new private label brand. And people go, JCPenney, like you just did, and it's like, yes, JCPenney. And I want you to own it with pride, as opposed to any other emotion that is more of a question mark. So the declarative, yes, JCPenney, and surprising regular people with great things at great prices is I mean, I just think it's hugely meaningful. With forgiveness to the fact that I know this is a global conference, I will say for our American consumers who have genuine affordability issues right now, but they don't want any less than people with huge economic means. They want Nike sneakers for their kids, and they want the beauty products that they want, and they want really cute fashion for themselves and for back to school, and we make that really accessible and affordable, and I just love that. So that is the overall approach more than a campaign. I would love to also give you a Brooks Brothers example, but maybe we should let Jill go, and then I can get Brooks Brothers next.
Yeah, why don't we talk about
Okay.
MasterCard, and then we'll come back to Brooks
All right,
Brothers.
great.
You know, so I'm new to MasterCard, so I've been there almost 7 months now. And obviously, Priceless is an iconic brand campaign, but I was learning it from the inside. And in terms of moments that matter, we're a sponsor of McLaren MasterCard Formula One team. And I went to my first F1 race, which is a whole nother thing I had to learn. And we do this thing called Team Priceless, where fans of McLaren, they all submit stories of why they're like the greatest McLaren racing fan ever, and then they get picked to go to the F1 race, but they have an experience that blows their mind. So there were these 4 women. So first of all, McLaren is a really popular team with women and with younger fans. And I went in and I just sat with them. They were sitting in the paddock club. The day before they had met the 2 drivers, Oscar and Lando. They had no idea they were going to meet them. And they were all telling me, I asked them, like, what did you submit? They were so different. It was so personal. They were then ending up in this experience that was life-changing for them. But it was just so beautiful to see up close. And I love that. That, to me, is like an authentic way of saying, if we say that, you know, there are priceless moments and these moments that really matter, and then seeing it, and I loved that it was 4 women. I really love that.
Okay, let's go back to Brooks Brothers now. That was a great story. Thank you very much.
Well, I love that, and I know Jill and I will talk more. I mean, I'm just going to reflect on your work. What I think is so cool about the universality of Priceless is that it's not really monetary. You're not putting a price tag on it. And I think there is an analogy to what we're trying to tell you is like, you can have great things in an affordable way. And that thrill you get when you get something great for a great deal, it's kind of, I mean, I love that personally as a shopper. So spreading that. Okay, Brooks Brothers. So Brooks Brothers, do you know Brooks Brothers is the oldest retailer in America since 1818?
Did you guys know that? I didn't know that.
The oldest. So many firsts, like invented the button-down collared shirt, like so many firsts. And so in thinking about how to take the marketing forward, there's a bit of how do we do 2 things? So I have kind of 2 campaigns that work together. One we're calling Moments, because there are people that have these beautiful, like, Brooks Brothers has a place in their memory. Like, that is where my dad took me to get my first suit. Like those types of stories. And I do think there's something about taking a regular shopping moment and making it a Brooks Brothers moment for these special occasions that is real. It is authentic. It's not contrived. It's not marketing. It is truly pulling out something to the name of our panel that is real in culture and telling those stories. Wedding day, first job. So you're going to see us celebrate kind of the classicism and the weight of those moments. At the same time, there are probably a lot of people out here that might not think of Brooks Brothers as being for them. I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, you are not probably a head-to-toe Brooks Brothers customer, but if I could get you to see how incredible quality and great the pieces are and make it yours. Throw a great cashmere sweater on, put a blazer on over your own pair of jeans. So that's the other campaign we've been doing, is kind of themed to the idea of make it yours and showing interesting people like Leslie Bibb, the comedian Alex Edelman, style icons, very, very like interesting, smart people. No one who doesn't have substance, and showing how they styled Brooks Brothers. And I think it's to be able to do both of those things at the same time is, for me, very exciting for this brand.
Marissa, you're very good at your job. I suddenly had an image of Brooks Brothers in my closet after you.
Game
appealed to me
on.
directly.
Game on.
Very,
Listen, anyone, I will get, by the way, anyone who wants a JCPenney gift card to give it a try, I will have one for you after you just
look at
have
the
to
hand.
show me.
Look at the hand.
You just have to show me when you go back. You got to like actually use it and send me like a DM on Instagram what you bought. Okay? So.
We had a lot of raised hands.
All
We're
right.
gonna take you
Deal.
up on that offer.
Afterwards, you got it. You got it.
Jill, talk to me about what risk-taking looks like for MasterCard, and how do you sort of stay true to the brand, but also push the envelope and appeal to new consumers?
Yeah, the first thing was like having a 30-year-old brand line is a blessing, but you also don't want to take it for granted. So the first, I don't know if it was a risk or not, but was we clearly had permission to interrogate it. Like, don't assume it's going to still work, but really know. But I think for me, it's less risk-taking and more lifting up voices. Like, I talked to the team members today from Poland and Germany and Singapore, and they had this great idea. Like, one of the best ideas I've heard about in a 10-minute coffee, quick connect this morning. And so for me, it's the risk is if you don't let all these great ideas come to life. Because when you have a big global brand and you really do know who you are, you could get into a repetitive space. And actually, the risk is not letting new creative ideas bubble up. So what I'm obsessed with is how do we find ways to make sure that those ideas would normally just get executed quietly in Central Europe. And it may not even be overly discussed, but it's actually such a big idea. I'm like, can we take that to Southeast Asia? Can we take it to Latin America? It was so smart and so creative. So for me, it's creating the conditions where every idea feels like it has the right to be heard is the most important moment. Will it be risky or not? I don't know. But I know what's the danger of getting too homogenized.
Marissa, I wanted to talk to you about, right now in the fashion space, obviously there's lots of fluidity, right? And people are trying to find brands that work for them. How important is getting people to come into your stores versus the online experience, and how do you make both those moments matter?
It's very important, and I will tell you the majority of our business across the whole Catalyst portfolio, so obviously JCPenney, Brooks Brothers, Aeropostale, Lucky Brand, Nautica, they are still predominantly stores first in where the majority of the business is. It doesn't mean we don't love and need and rely on our .com business, and of course thinking about it in an omni-channel way. We also, on some of the other brands, have distribution in other retailers. Like a Lucky Brand, you can find it in Macy's. So it's multifaceted, but the stores part is real, and I think one of the interesting themes, I don't know how much you've been hearing it is, I mean, of course everyone knew AI would be prevalent in Cannes, but there's this other piece that is about how much people are craving in-person experiences to kind of counterbalance that, right? When what you just described in McLaren.
And you were telling me that people are going back to the mall.
They are going back to the mall.
I was surprised at that.
Yeah, and that's great when we look at like our Aeropostale business, which is young. I mean, it's more of a, like, let's call it a teen-first business, and they want to go shopping with their friends. And they also want the affordability, which is why that brand proposition's doing really well right now. So yes. Now, does it mean all stores in all locations are thriving? No. Sometimes they're in tough spots or malls that aren't vibrant. And of course, that's the challenge in any business. You have parts that are good and parts that aren't so good. But in general, we are firmly committed to real world shopping, along with digital.
Jill, talk to me about a little bit more about the real world and MasterCard. How important is it to bring consumers together for experiential activation so that they can understand the power of the MasterCard brand, but also experience something that may not be directly related to using their credit card?
Yeah, I think for MasterCard, we're part of a much bigger ecosystem because the way we go to market is with partners, with customers. So it automatically makes you a very collaborative entity, which is really nice. And whether that be through co-brands that you have, it's through financial institutions who issue the cards, it's the small businesses that accept the cards. So there's all the ways that we end up going to market is really, it's never a just us proposition, and it's a big part of how we market and how our brand is created. People have to feel like they have the right to participate in it, and you can, along with a co-brand, create a priceless experience. You can, along with a sponsorship partner, create priceless experiences. You can, with financial institutions, do that. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is the different ways people now pay and the way they think of where the convenience for that and the value for that is. So the partnerships with Apple, for example, those are all really critical pieces of how we understand what actually matters to the end users, because the brand never gets isolated, and that's a really big gift. And then when you do the priceless experiences, you really learn from the audience. We get more than we give. I can promise you that. As incredible as those experiences are, you really learn about those people, what matters to them actually, and that's a constant source of direct insight for the brand.
Do the partnerships with Apple, does that reach a specific demographic that you may not reach otherwise, would you say?
Well, what's so interesting is, most people know, the biggest generational transfer of wealth is about to happen with Gen Z through 2030. And so, don't assume they're not going to make the rules. They will. And that's why you have to be, it's not going to be this is how we want you to interact with the brand and our partners and our customers, but understanding how you want to interact with the brand. But there is a challenge of making sure that what has become seamless and almost invisible is actually critical to some of the things that matter most to those people as they participate in shopping and buying and economies. And I really love this creator. I want to buy what they're selling. Is that a safe link to click on? All of those things still exist, and we need to make sure that we're raising it up in the right way with the right audiences.
This is a question for both of you. Speaking of creators, how do each of you work with creators, and how do you make sure that creators make sense for your brand and your mission?
Well, we have a portfolio of brands, so it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. I think it's nice that we're saying creators versus influencers, but however you dub it. I think it is...
Is it important to have creators endorsing your product in the retail space? How important is it?
I think it is. If it comes from a place where it's not commoditized, if you can avoid that. Where I get a little allergic is when it's somebody who's talking about my brand today and talking about another similar brand the next day. And it's sometimes a little hard to control for that. So for me, and this has been, I go back over 10 years to my Taco Bell days when we were doing Friendsgiving before this was a thing. We were inviting influential friends of the brand to have dinner with us, and they would create content because it was so fun. To me, that is still inspirational to me. About people that actually love your brand are by far going to be the best people to tell your story. And by the way, that goes all the way up to if we're working with a bigger celebrity. We have a bigger celebrity we're about to introduce, Unlucky brand, who's a musician, and it came out of him genuinely wearing Lucky Brand jeans and liking them. So for me, that's the best case scenario. It doesn't always work that way. But when you have people that have those genuine stories to tell, it's great. On Aeropostale, we also have our store associates who are able to opt in and be on our A team and work as influencers too, which is perfect for that kind of a brand, and that's something I'd love to see us do on more of our brands.
How big of an influencer do some of your store associates become? How big of a following do they have, or is this still a pilot program?
No, it's not a pilot program. It pre-existed me. I give the team credit, but looking at it and figuring out how to grow it and resource it. And what better ambassador? Really, when you're in retail, your best ambassadors should and could and should be your own store associates. So when they're feeling that love, and then they're maybe even a little bit incentivized to feel like, hey, if you want to share that love and tell those stories to your own friends and followers, that's good for you and it's good for us. It's a great model.
Jill, same question for you about MasterCard, about influencers, and also if you want to add social media, the role that social media plays in terms of connecting your consumers and the consumer experience.
Yeah, for us, it's a very hyper-local play. because of that whole ecosystem that I was talking about. Like, the influencers have to be really organic to the community that they're influencing. And that could be, so it always comes to us. It's the best when it comes to us the way Marissa just described. They reach out to us and they say, there's something we love about your brand. We love what you stand for. We love the concept of doing well by doing good. We love the way you help, this, that, or the other thing. And so giving the team the power to curate that everywhere is really critical to the authenticity of those communities. And that's the way right now we go about it. We then track them globally. We track them and make sure that the overall system and the investment is working, but they're curated team by team.
We have time for one last question. I was wondering if you could both talk about, we talked about Gen Z and the amount of income that is coming into the marketplace. What do you think the future looks like for appealing to Gen Z and also engaging them with your brands? So we can start with MasterCard.
Yeah, I think it really starts with understanding what matters to them. I was just going through a bunch of data the other day, like what is affluent to Gen Z is very different than what has mattered to prior generations. And if you don't listen and you keep talking the previous story, I think that they will correct you very quickly. So it's a gift. There is a very vocal audience. They very much know what they want. They will give you feedback. So participate, listen, learn, and adapt. But that's going to be very interesting to watch. And I think the danger there is not listening.
Well, Jill, you used the word homogenize before about something else. I mean, it's obviously dangerous to homogenize assumptions about an entire generation of just that's only united by age. I mean, there's so many differences. And like I said, I mean, even here at, a global festival in Europe, is global, mine are more US. Even within the United States, one market, profound differences. But I think to find those common threads, I mean, because Gen Z has grown up totally native to technology, and also I think maybe even more aware than people my age of the benefit, like the craving the real world experiences. I think that's interesting that Gen Z is the one that's like leading the charge going back into the mall, for example. Well, I think they are savvy. I really do. And I think some of the, as Jill said, the preconceived notions we may have about what they consider status and maybe what they don't can be rearranged. So that to me creates a lot of opportunity, especially in leading legacy brands where reinvention's possible. There's always a new moment to get them to reconsider. And actually what's interesting even with JCPenney is we have our teen business is really good at JCPenney right now. So it's really, really interesting how we obviously have to bring our intuition, our expertise as marketers, but also be humble enough to learn about people who are different from ourselves and what they really want.
And how lucky we are right now to actually have the ability and the means to meet that emerging generation on their terms as diverse as they will be. Because I think it would have been challenging in the past. The tools are a gift right now.
Yeah.
Jill and Marissa, we could keep going on and on. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you both so much for your time. Hi guys, how's your can line going so far?
Very well, very hot, but very enjoyable. Met a lot of very interesting people, which has been very helpful.
So our conversation today is going to be about powered by fans. And sorry, Shelly, I cut you off. Were you going to say anything about Can Lion? Do you have anything you want to say? Okay, powered by fans, creating entertainment brands that last. Obviously, the two of you both work for huge brands that have a very, very long legacy. And I was wondering if we could start with, what is the difference between having an audience and having a fandom? Darren, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I mean, first of all, not every show we make is going to have that fandom, that passionate level. Having the viewership, having the success for a business property is our goal, obviously. But when you have the fandom, you have a different level of connection. It's a different opportunity for marketing also to really go deep and really expand on what the show makes. We don't make the show. We hopefully help make it better. And that opportunity can last all year long versus just when something is on. Versus a show that has a passive group. We are in the moment, and then we move on, and we come back to it for the next season. So, levels.
Shelley, same question for you.
Yeah, so BBC Studios makes so many different genres of shows that find an audience, and the audience is really important, but the audience is quite passive. When it comes to fans, and that's really what my division does at BBC Studios, brands and licensing, it's about when a show becomes a brand or a franchise and there's a connection, and we build out the story worlds for people to experience the IP in a way that extends it beyond the screen. So I'd say audience is passive and fandom's active.
Can you give me an example of a show at the BBC Studios where the fandom helped enhance the show or enhance the longevity of a show?
Yeah, I could give two examples. We have Dancing with the Stars, which has had a phenomenal year in the US, and Bluey. So let's start with Dancing with the Stars. We reinvented how the voting system worked on the show because we saw it was finding a fandom, but the fandom couldn't get involved sufficiently well. So the
So what was wrong? Yeah, what was wrong with the voting beforehand in terms of people not being involved?
So it was cost prohibitive, it was old-fashioned, so it was a phone-in, whereas now it's fully on mobile and fully accessible, low barrier to entry. So it just enables more conversations and interaction with your mates and engagement with the show storylines as they're unfolding. For Bluey, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's because some people don't have children, so I wouldn't expect you to know the IP. It's a phenomenal global hit. It's had 45 billion streaming minutes last year, the #1 most watched show in the US, beyond Grey's Anatomy, Stranger Things. It's really found its following. And of course, there's a huge franchise that extends the Bluey world. But listening to the fans, we've set up spin-off YouTube channels to tell the story of Bingo, Bluey's little sister, and Muffin, another character in the show who has a lot of emotional meltdowns, and parents and children alike can identify with Muffin in a way that extends the show beyond Bluey, the character herself. So those are a few examples.
Interesting. Okay, and Darren, same question for you. What is an example or a few examples of fandoms that have really helped propel a show's longevity or the success of a show?
I can first riff off what Shelley just said. Is I launched season 1 of Dancing with the Stars and Grey's Anatomy, and the way they started were so uniquely different, where for Grey's Anatomy it was episode 1. People went crazy for it. I remember it was the first time we did a Facebook page, which was like so cool. It was
in like 2005, 6?
It was Grey's was spring of 2005.
Yeah.
And Dancing with the Stars was a summer show, and I remember I'm like, you want me to promote a celebrity ballroom dancing show? Like it was, but you know, once it took off, and what has happened this last year in the U.S. at ABC is phenomenal. But you know, for Grey's Anatomy, those characters just pulled people in so fast. But specifically at Fox, fans saved Family Guy twice. It was canceled 2 times, but back in the day, the DVD sales pulled it forward, and when it was initially scheduled on the network, the competition was opposite Friends for some weird reason, and it collapsed. But fans, the passion brought it back, and now it's one of the longest running shows on TV. Yeah.
How important is the dialogue of the fandom on social media, and how much do you monitor that or gauge that as a metric for what people actually believe about programming?
Okay. So our team are interacting with fans day in, day out. So it's part of the team DNA, understanding what people care about, what the sentiment is. I'd say the affinity worlds around the core fandom that they're in there for, which gives us clues on how to expand the franchise in a way that's true to the brand in question. So yeah, it can be just replying to comments in a feed, but of course we use other tools like Tubular to understand the themes of what's being talked about, or even through Content ID, getting clues on how we can extend the stories or new passion verticals that we could take the brand into that we might not have considered, but have suddenly become relevant because the audience is indicating that's where their passions lie.
Darren?
Yeah, what used to be sporadic research that was come out of our team is now daily feedback, and it has absolutely impacted our guest casting. It has changed storylines. You need to fuel those people who take their time to give you feedback and comment. That's your core. And once you lose that, it's very hard to get it back. So we lean in a little bit. We want to understand what people are liking, not liking, and we react. It impacts marketing, impacts our actual show content.
Can you give me an example of guest casting that was influenced by the fans?
The type of people we are looking to cast right now onto Baywatch, which we're remaking to come out in January. We went very social influencer heavy in the casting, people that have a strong appeal. People were actually putting out names, and some of them were like, it's not a bad idea. Some were. But for the most part, we really want to take this seriously. And then you can cast somebody that brings 10 million fans, yes, please. That way we're not starting at zero, It helps.
Yeah, I would say there's been such a shift in the last 5 years in terms of we really feel in service of the fans, whereas before it would be using the platforms to find and extend an audience. It's now listen to the fans. They've adopted the IP, and we're in tune with them all the time to feed back into the production ecosystem of the business, which is really exciting because people have real leverage and influence over what gets made.
Fans have gotten ahead of marketing now. Like, they're jumping in when a show is announced. I'm like, I'm not ready. But they are.
Yeah, they move faster than maybe we can sometimes.
Fandom is largely positive and it helps boost shows, but there's also toxic fandoms. And we saw that, I think, recently in the United States with Heated Rivalry, where the actors behind that show issued statements on social media asking people to stop dissecting every single thing that they did in public. Is there a line in which the fandom goes from being a positive to a negative, or where you have to sort of juggle that and monitor that for the sake of the welfare of your casts or the people that work on your shows?
I don't know how you necessarily can turn that off, unfortunately. It's whether you react to it or not. Controlling talent sometimes can be part of the challenge in that, is not poking the bear. And some people like to respond. They want to have their voice. I respect that. But you cannot compete with the silent majority out there where they're going to come out and, it's all anonymous. So people feel free to say whatever they want, obviously. I can't say we take it too seriously and react to it. You can't stop it. So I don't know if that's really the best answer, but unfortunately it's reality.
Yeah, I think fans expect transparency, so it's even trying to control it is probably, it's not our remit. We've got to respond. So it depends what the case of the day or the month is to think about, come back to first principles of what the brand and the IP is and respond appropriately, or not respond at all. So, not every comment or situation requires a response. The fans want to own it. They want to have dialogue. They are the community. Sometimes it's not the place of the brand to.
And they will regulate themselves sometimes. You'll see people kind of pounce on the trolls, which helps.
Right, this dialogue that emerges on social media, and then it does kind of correct if people step out of line. How do you, when you're evaluating fandoms and when you're monitoring fandoms, how do you account for bots or accounts that are not real, that are just, trying to spread messages that aren't really generated by human beings?
I mean, where you can control that and stop it, it is sometimes, if you don't catch it in time, that is where some really damaging things can happen, where you start a message. People are so hypercritical right now of what's real, what's AI, what's not. People are picking up on things faster versus being duped as much as they have been in the past. So I think, again, crowds will self-regulate. We've had fandom point things out to us. They're getting into it faster. But we have people now that are specifically monitoring for those things, which never existed 2 years ago.
Yeah, the best we can do is 24/7 moderation. We have a partner who does that for us, and things get flagged very quickly if it's an issue, but they're empowered to take things down if it's not real.
Darren, you mentioned Baywatch. Talk to me about when the decision to bring back IP or to reboot a franchise. What role does fandom play in deciding what franchises are relevant for a new audience, or maybe a show has a new life for a new generation?
when you can see these fast channels of like Baywatch, 10, 11 seasons from the 90s are still getting viewership, and our partners over at Kubi are airing, have all those seasons as well, and there's still an active audience, there's something there, obviously. So you're looking for the pulse. And if it's, there are dead franchises that don't need to come back. We all know that. But there's some that when you can bring them back and continue the storyline, stay true to where it started, and then ideally bring in a new audience, that is our goal and what we hope to do. Why the casting reflects what it is now with all these social influencers I mentioned. But each episode right now, we're looking to bring someone back from the OG seasons. So just to kind of spark that, and if we can move the audience forward, that is the dream of hopefully the Baywatch 2.0. Yeah.
Shelley, is there an example at the BBC studios where a reaction from the fandom made you realize that something should be rebooted or given another chance?
Actually, listening to the fandom gives us lots of clues to how we develop new IP. So I'm more looking, that's more my remit, is where's the scale of interest and how do we feed that into what production are creating that's coming through the pipeline. We have another team who run the productions, who do their own listening. But we've got a couple of shows coming through. We've got My Friend Maisie, which has just been commissioned for 2 seasons, released on Sky. We're really expecting that to do well. It's another potential franchise that taps into the emotional connection and emotional awareness that we've seen work so well with Bluey, but it's done in a slightly different way for a slightly younger audience.
We talked about the Grey's Anatomy Facebook page. I think that you said that was the first TV show that had a Facebook page. I remember there was a period where everyone was asked to live tweet, right, during their shows to get fandoms encouraged and engaged. Can you talk a little bit about, are there examples of showrunners that are doing interactions with fandoms in the right way right now in 2026? Can you give me an example of the right way to engage with fandoms?
I mean, I'll just take it from the Grey's Anatomy example. That evolved into Scandal, and the way Shonda Rhimes has always been so fan-first. She writes for the viewers, she listens to the viewers, she was reading, I mean, I can't speak for her now, but back in the day, like, she was looking at what people thought of, what Patrick and Ellen were doing as their characters, and when characters were killed off, what was the reaction, and what they do in their real lives, how that span into the storylines. It's very interesting. And people who are engaging with fans and give them somewhat of a voice, it also has led to how all of her other series have come up. So it's interesting the way to see how her mind has always worked into the Bridgerton days now, which is a whole other level of fandom for her, which is, very different genre, but I think it speaks a lot to paying attention to what the audience and the viewers are reacting to.
And I also want to talk to you about the difference in fandoms when it comes to scripted versus reality TV. We talked about Dancing with the Stars. Is there, when you look at it in terms of greenlighting, producing, engaging with fandoms, is there a difference in scripted versus the reality TV world?
Reality TV world requires you to be very responsive to the fandom and in the moment. So,
why is that?
Because something will happen on the show that's dropped right that moment, and you need people on to be able to know what's being talked about and to respond in an appropriate way. So the producers of the show actually are the people who moderate that fandom, because it's the most appropriate people who are in the DNA of the production of the show. Whereas something like an animation, which is, it's already, the storyline's already told, it can be managed by a different group of people who aren't in the live production, but are more thinking about the story arc of what's coming, and respond in an appropriate way.
We have time for just one last question. So I wanted to ask you both about the future of fandom. So where are we headed in terms of the way in which fans engage about their favorite TV shows, and how is that connected to advertising when you look at the way in which you try to monetize TV programming?
So future of fandom, I mean, we're going to see a lot more from our creators building multi-touchpoint media businesses. And actually, for our properties, thinking about how we behave as creators ourselves, and we already are, but I think that's just going to expedite. And then it's for us, it's then how do we serve that fandom by moving them through the ecosystem? So whether that be through gaming, obviously gaming is huge, but it's playing a much bigger part in how we're telling our stories beyond streaming platforms. Also audiobooks, podcasts, the whole content ecosystem. It's really exploded in the last couple of years, making sure we're leveraging that sufficiently and working with partners who want to find an engaged audience, who want to have the associations with the properties we have that are highly trusted, premium. So it's serving the fans of who are our tribe, but also serving the fans of partners who have an affinity crossover.
And just to close, Jaron, any last thoughts on the future of fandom?
The ecosystem word was what I was going to say. We used to support fans while the show was on. Now we're engaging with them all year long. We could have a show on for 12 episodes, but all 52 weeks of the year, they're still fans. And I have to now create extra things to keep feeding that. So it is the behind the scenes, it is the creators, it's the podcast, it's throwing it all in, and somehow that all falls on marketing now. So it's a lovely thing. It's just some job security in that, but it is a lot more to lift when you're keeping it going all the time.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of pressure to keep up, but it's fun.
Yes, exactly.
It is. I know. Remember back in the day, you would only get fan letters in the mail, and it's a very different world now. Thank you both for your time. Very, very interesting conversation. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.
So, Claudia, let me start with you. How do you know when it's time to evolve a brand, what the brand stands for, and how do you do it? Quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you, Todd. So, hello, everybody. I'm Claudia. I work for Philips, which, to your point, Todd, is a brand that has been around for centuries, 135 years, actually, to be precise. And the critical point for legacy brands is not so much about reinventing yourself, is how you can continue to interrogate yourself on how you're serving the deep human need at the center of your mission. We have always been about meaningful innovation that can provide trust and solutions for people. As you stay true to that promise and adapt your language to meet people where they are, then it is not about legacy, it's about continuous to stay relevant.
Yeah. So Roberto, Mattel has successfully reintroduced some of these iconic brands, right? Barbie being one of the most amazing case studies there, where it appeals across generations. How do you think about evolving the brand, and how do you avoid alienating people who are used to what it used to mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that's a central theme for brands that have really stood the test of time, and it's really that balance about being timeless and being timely. Take a brand like Barbie, for example. Barbie came out in 1959, right? So as a reflection of what culture used to be in 1959, if generations of marketers and designers hadn't been bold to really understand what the trends were at the time, to evolve the brand while staying true to what made it authentic in the first place, Barbie wouldn't be here today, right? Not a lot of people know this, but if you actually search it online, the face of the Barbie doll has changed almost every 10 years during that time, because it was reflecting the trends that you would see and how people were dressing, the hairstyles and everything else. And sometimes that can be scary, right? Like you're changing the image of your brand. Obviously, in hindsight, when you look at the history of 60 years, you're like, yeah, of course you should have done that. But in the moment, it's such a difficult decision. So I think knowing who you are as a brand, knowing the purpose of your brand, staying true to the authenticity, but also knowing that there's a line that sometimes we are not willing to cross, but you have to bend it a little bit to drive true innovation.
So how have you, maybe if you each have an example of how do you push the envelope, like literally, and what's the next 10-year iteration for Barbie maybe?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think everybody knows the Barbie movie, watched the Barbie movie. I think that's
Waiting for the sequel.
Great, yeah. So are we. We are waiting for not waiting. What was great about it is that we had that line of what the brand stood for, but partnering with an incredible creator like Greta Gerwig, and allowing her to push the boundaries of what that was, and being comfortable in that. I mean, you think back to the movie. There was so much of self-awareness, about Mattel, about Barbie, about society. That's what created the right cultural conversation and the right emotional connection. You have to be bold, but at the same time knowing where to draw that line.
So that was a moment when Barbie as a brand did evolve. And
yeah, absolutely.
It was, you said, like an atomic bomb going off in terms of fueling sales of the products themselves, right?
100%. I mean, it was an incredible moment. I think, probably everyone in this audience was dressing in pink at some point during that time. And it wasn't just about toys, right? And I think that that's what's powerful about our IP is that the emotional connection that it generates with every single one of you, be it Barbie, be it Hot Wheels, be it Uno, or Thomas, or Fisher-Price, it allows you to extend that, brand beyond toys and into film and into publishing and location-based entertainment, really driving a flywheel that it's about the emotional aspect and the place that these brands can have in pop culture.
So Claudia, Philips has this long-standing reputation of trust, innovation, being part of everyday people's lives, but the company has changed in the last several years, right? It's no longer light bulbs, right? That's not part of the company. No longer TVs. It's personal care. Did you have to re-educate people on what Philips stands for and what it means to them personally?
Absolutely. And what Philips was created for was actually to democratize technology for a broader amount of people. So Philips did not invent the light bulb. They actually mass-produced it. So they were the first one to have the light bulb idea to actually make light accessible to a great scale. And that credo is still that belief that you can, with ingenuity and also with trust and commitment, make technology accessible for a greater good is still something at the heart of what we do. Philips, over the past 10 years, has focused more on healthcare and wellness. And eventually is still that innovation at the service of better outcomes, better care for more people, and is still defining how we look at how we bring innovation to life.
So that core brand value, that stayed the same.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And it has evolved as well as an ethos, looking at how technology, for us, being so much part of our DNA, the founding fathers of Philips were actually two brothers.
Oh.
They actually bet their whole family money on the company, which is a beautiful statement and testament to the passion of that family. How you basically bring that back to life in what you do today is still critical, and something that we use as well as a filter. If your innovation is not meaningful, so if you're launching new products, new iterations just for the sake of new stuff, you are breaching the trust that the brothers have created. So that's
Well, you
almost
dilute the value of it,
blasphemous,
right?
sacrilegious, absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Roberta, how would you sum up the Mattel brand ethos, or is it a constellation of brands, more or less?
Obviously, today, Mattel is obviously a constellation of multiple brands, but I think if there is one thing that unifies all of those brands, it's really the sense of joy that it brings to everyone. Again, if I say the names of these brands out loud, as I just did before, like all of you were smiling because it's either bringing you back to your childhood or it's bringing you to somebody you love that interacts with those brands. So knowing that, you have a responsibility as a brand owner to make sure that every single element of it, not just advertising, but products, experiences, are delivering, on that promise.
Earlier this week at the Canva Creative Cabana, we had the CMO of Lego, and she said, "We are not a toy company." Is that true for Mattel?
Yeah, we're also not a toy company.
But you are a toy company.
We are a joy company. We're so much more than that, you know. And again, I think that we've been taking enormous steps into expanding, you know, what that means. And listen, I think we're a very unique IP holder in the constellation of IP holders, because most of the IP that we tend to think about comes from movies and from content and from television. And what's special about Mattel is that the IP really emanates from toys. And that is such a deep connection. Like, if you think back again to your childhood, Mattel brands are probably some of the first brands that you absolutely obsessed over.
Fisher-Price for me.
And that you loved, right? And it was there every single moment of your day as you were playing. So we think that the place that these brands have in culture is so much broader than just toys. And that's the evolution that we're seeing for the past few years as we're talking about becoming a brand-centric company, you know, because it's about this entire flywheel, right? Of experiences and products.
So earlier, Roberto, we were talking, and you talked about, you know, knowing how elastic your brand is, the brand elasticity. What's the checklist here? And Claudia, you can address this as well too, but how do you know when something is not a right fit? Is it just intuitive? Is there, you know, a rule of thumb that you follow?
I mean, in a global organization, there's so many people that touch the brand, plus agencies and all of that. I think you would need to have a very clear articulation of your brand foundation, right? What's your DNA? What's your purpose? You know, and have repetition with the organization in terms of who you are and who you are not, especially who you are not. And don't fall on the trap of just engaging in cultural conversation for the sake of engaging, just to get clicks, just to get engagement on socials, if you don't belong in that conversation. So I think, to me, clarity of articulation is one of the most important things a brand owner can do.
You know, and it just occurred to me, this question of AI-generated memes of American Girl or Barbie or whatever, right? Is this problematic for the brand? Does it confuse people, and how do you address that?
I think audiences today are a lot smarter than before. I think they know when it's something that is generated by the brand and when something is not. Obviously, there's some things that we can control, but we try to make sure that our brands have strong voices that our fans can recognize.
Claudia, let me ask you, you know, how is AI changing the way you do your work? Is it an accelerant? Is it something you're experimenting with? Where are the wins?
First and foremost, I want to get back to something that Roberto said, which I loved, the fact that we are guardians of our brands. So I didn't invent Philips. I don't think you invented Mattel. We are incredibly fortunate as marketeers to inherit this wealth that is given to us and to our teams and continue that journey. I loved engaging with you before. You were saying that you were using Philips Avent as a dad. I absolutely recognize the beautiful brand of my childhood. Isn't that incredibly powerful? So I just wanted to get back to that, because it also brings us back to how the world of marketing, the job of the marketeer is changing with AI.
Okay.
And the interesting point is how it is changing the consumer experience journey. How are people discovering brands in a different way? We can indeed think about how AI can enable you in terms of content, in terms of media, but the more exciting part, at least for me, is how your brand, especially if your brand has been around for a while, can still be loved by humans and read by machines. So how can you still resonate at emotional level with people like us, and as well be read by machines? And the currency of trust, the legacy, the ability to stay true to yourself and keep that promise with your audience, with your users, is a constant that in whatever evolution of AI will actually determine how people will continue to discover and enjoy your
Yeah,
brand.
good point. Roberto, what do you think? How is the role of the CMO going to change in the AI era in the next 2 to 5 years? Is it a step change?
Absolutely, absolutely is a step change. I think there's so many layers to unpack. You know, one that people don't talk a lot about is, I think as CMOs we have now a role to educate parts of our organization in terms of the opportunity behind, you know, what AI can provide, including our own teams. You know, I think oftentimes, and we don't talk about this enough, AI is something that we're expecting people to just understand and experiment on and figure out. But I do think that AI literacy is something that is very important that we need to be talking about, and how are companies preparing their workforce, you know, to be part of
Right.
what's coming, because the expectations are going to change, right? And there's something that I think we don't talk, again, enough about, which is the importance of taste. And how is that going to become more of a critical skill set in this era of AI?
Right.
Because the technical aspect is going to be leveled. Whether or not you have great judgment and whether or not you have great taste is going to be critical for creative work specifically.
AI can't buy good taste. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, last question for each of you. Maybe if you can provide an example of, you know, maybe a marketing message or a brand tweak that was surprising to the audience that paid dividends in terms of like, this is what the brand stands for. I don't know if it's Sonicare or event. Is there a campaign that stands out?
You mean something that surprised our audiences, but like still
Right.
through the brand? I will take the example of, if I can, two examples very quickly. One example is indeed the one that we were talking about. Philips Avent is such a beautiful brand, and it has such a beautiful DNA. It was invented by a dad. It was the Avent bottle was actually the invention of a dad who wanted to be more helpful towards his wife. We had this incredible, profound truth hidden somewhere in our history. And all of a sudden, we actually look back at it, and it's like, this is what the brand stands for. So we brought it back as not just a campaign, but as our platform for Philips Avent, Share the Care, from the founding father of Philips Avent. So that was actually something that didn't surprise the audiences, but surprised us. In the sense of sometimes you need to interrogate your brand, and you might find better answers there than new ideas and generation.
Okay.
And another good example for me is One Blade, Philips One Blade. It is one of our legacy invention. Our shavers are absolutely our pride and joy. We have 100 years of history of that. But the way we have been able to bring it to life for Gen Z, the product function is still the same. No nicks, no cuts. It's actually a very safe performing product, but giving you the confidence of stepping into that adulthood was actually the way by which, once again, a well-known brand got a complete new meaning for our audiences.
Yeah, Roberto, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the example that I would give of something unexpected was our presence for Barbie in Coachella this year.
Coachella?
Coachella.
Okay.
You would say, like, what is Barbie doing in Coachella?
Makes sense, though.
It does, and not only it did, like people, you know, the Gen Z audience there was so incredibly impacted by the fact that you had this Barbie presence. As a matter of fact, our line at one point was 3.5 hours long for people to come and experience, you know, the Barbie activation and to do the, you know, a keychain, a bracelet for them to put in their purse that we created. So you would think about, like, why does this resonate so much with that audience? And it was surprising. First of all, everyone has an innate affinity with these brands. Again, the connections are built when they were kids. But the fact that we were there with an authentic experiential experience connected to the festival and what the festival meant just allowed us to have significant appeal to that audience. I really believe that experiential right now is one of the most underrated secrets of marketing because
we're at an experiential event right now.
Exactly. But we tend to focus so much on measurement and metrics
Yeah.
and performance, especially in a week like this. And at the end of the day, experiential is giving, especially the new generation, something that they crave, which is real connection, but at the same time, the ability to share and to make it be
Yeah.
seen by many. So it's an incredible type of
So
activity.
how, just quickly, were you able to measure Barbie at Coachella in any way?
Yeah, I mean, we were the most talked about brand at Coachella.
Okay.
The PR impressions were incredible. The growth in our social handles. And right after that, we followed it up with a collection collaboration with Addicted, which is one of the fastest growing fashion brands for Gen Z, which did phenomenal as well. And then other activations that have launched and are following. So
Yeah.
it's been an incredible, foray into
That's
that audience.
the
for
goal,
us.
right? Surprise and delight. Well, Roberto, Claudia, thank you so much. Very good conversation. Thank you all for sitting with us on this
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken afternoon.